I can hear, no, not as well as you can hear me. That's good. That's good. Okay, good morning, everybody. Thank you for everybody for making the journey here. And thanks to Donna and Shirley and all that team for making it so lovely for us. Tony Kaluzny, Erica Fernie, and I have been on a mission to introduce our land grants via that are crown patents, our letters patent, into the courts to see what rights are retained for us as citizens. And we have been working on this for a long time. It was about 5 years ago. How long ago when we first went to court, Tony?
Well, that wasn't until
2 years ago, we finally made it into the courts. We made it to provincial court, Superior Court, actually, with our application. And it was a pretty basic application. What we were saying was that on Tony Kaluzny's property that was patented in 1818 and granted for his sole and only use, heirs and assigns forever, we were saying that the community could not come along and impact Tony's trees in any way at all. And therefore, no permits, no nothing. We don't need a permit to trim our own trees or take down our own trees. And that's essentially what we went to court for. And we presented an excellent case. And while we were in court, the lawyer that we had retained did a wonderful job, absolutely wonderful. And by the end of the day, the judge got it. He knew that our profit, because it says right in the Conveyancing Act that our profit is our profit. If they're going to issue a permit, that's their profit, not on my trees. No profit for you on my trees. And my trees are no different than my grain or my corn. That's a profit. So if they can impact your trees, they can take your grain and corn. And an injury to a tree could be construed as tapping a maple tree. How would you like that if you could no longer tap maple trees? And using your wood to burn to heat your house in the winter. How would you like it if you can't do that? We have a lot of issues with trees. In any case, we were in court, the judge got it. And at the end of our appearance, he said, I will be back to you with a decision within a week. And then 7 weeks passed. And then the judge came back and he said, I need your submissions on standing, meaning do you even have the right to be here? So $10,800 later, and 1 week passing, we handed him our submissions on standing. But we tricked him, because in our submissions on standing, it clearly spelled out a previous case that Tony had in court on a similar issue in terms of government interference on your land. Municipal interference on your land. His similar appearance in court, the court ruled against him, but based on him being in the wrong court. And the court said, if you really want to pursue this issue on your letters patent, you will have to go to Superior Court or better and launch a constitutional challenge. So that's what we did. So this judge, who then requested submissions on standing after getting them and costing a fortune, he said, I chose not to read them. There was no real issue with your standing after all. And then 7 weeks after that, he came back with his decision. And the way he skirted our action was to not address one single issue that we presented. When Tony read the ruling, he said, were we even there? Because there was nothing there about our case, nothing. Only, essentially what the judge said at the end of that was, I have decided, and you know well, that the municipality has the right to write bylaws. Well, guess what? We didn't go to court on that. We never said they couldn't make bylaws. They just can't make a tree bylaw for my trees and impact my trees at all. That was our point. He didn't go there. He wouldn't go there. So we got the ruling and we went back to Superior Court of Appeals, tens of thousands of dollars, and presented again. Now, when we filed our information to the Superior Court of Appeals, and the region of Niagara, because this is the bylaw that we were dealing with, the region of Niagara, they chose a very different tack on their Court of Appeals message. They chose to warn the courts that if the courts went along with us, all hell would break loose. I mean, the sky was gonna fall. And interestingly, that's something from a 1772 case that somebody says in the case. But the response from this Lord Stanley, I think his name is, was, let the skies fall, justice will be done. So the representation for Niagara region really didn't have a leg to stand on, and he knew it. So he warned the courts that if they let this go ahead, we're in big trouble. And they are in big trouble, because this ain't just about trees. This is about your severances. This is about your water. This is about absolutely any legislation via bylaw that has to do with your personal rights on your property. So anyways, we've put our latest filing is with the Supreme Court of Canada, and we're asking the Supreme Court for leave to appeal. Oh, I'm going to go back to that second appearance in Superior Court. Our lawyer presented our case again, and the justices were angry. And it's hard to believe that 3 Superior Court justices could all get up on the wrong side of the bed that morning. But they came into court, they were just awful. They intimidated our lawyer to the point where he was not at his best, let's say that. And he didn't want to be not at his best, but it was just ugly in there. So we had these 3 highly esteemed Superior Court judges of appeals judges who listened to our lawyer, and rather than presenting the sky is falling that the prosecution put forward, they said, we don't need to hear anything else, we can make our decision. They walked out, returned within 10 minutes, and said, you're done. We don't agree with you, we agree with the original court. So nobody has addressed a single issue that we put forward. That's the issue. Not a single issue, nothing has changed, and if anything, it's got worse. So now we're going to the Supreme Court of Canada, and just so you know what we presented to the court, there's a new website, it's called patentresearch.ca, www.patentresearch.ca. And this sheet is at the front, so it has all the information on it. And there's enough for everybody, I think. Patentresearch.ca, if you read nothing else on it, read the argument. It's 20 pages to the Supreme Court of Canada. This is how we're going to either be granted leave or fail and never get there. So that's where it stands. I'm going to let Tony tell you about our application. Tony Kaluzny.
Good morning. Oh, let's give this a shot. Good morning. What I wanted to do is review through the application to the Supreme Court and the reasons that we wanted to be heard, and also for these same reasons we were not heard. Well, we were heard, but we weren't considered in both courts. And it's not like we're making something up here, but it's literally statute that supports letters patent and the letters patent themselves. So we'll just take a brief look here. This is a bit of an arduous process applying for leave. Joan and I have been on the phone probably 2 hours a night, 5 days a week, and then confirming with a lawyer. Joan was fortunate enough that she found an agent. So if you're going to go to the Supreme Court of Canada, very, very few self-represented litigants will do it all themselves. Even if you had a lawyer that says, we're going to take this to the Supreme Court of Canada, they use an agent. And that agent is located in Ottawa. You will not find someone in St. Catharines or Hamilton, even Toronto. Rory did look into it, and he said there's nobody in Toronto. you have to secure a person from Ottawa. Joan was lucky. You found Moira Dillon, and at first she wasn't sure, but a few other of the law firms just said, no, we only represent lawyers. We don't represent anybody who's representing themselves. We went through the application as on the website for the Supreme Court of Canada. We thought we had it right, but then the lawyer came back and said, no, you gotta play with this, and she laid it out and told us what we had to find, but we did all the inputting, everything that's there. All she did was make sure that the margins are a certain size. The spacing between the lines have to be 1.5. The font has to be a certain type, and it has to be compiled with like little lines and all this kind of stuff. Stuff that we really didn't know, and we're grateful for her to do that. To file for the Supreme Court of Canada, $75. I think that's a deal. Okay? To get the agent to represent us to file. Now, this agent, anytime the Supreme Court has a question, they ask her and she asks us. At the same time, she sends it off to the printers, and the printers print it and deliver it to the Supreme Court of Canada and also get a receipt. So, we were considering if we had to do it ourselves, we were going to literally drive down to Ottawa and present it and get a receipt. That doesn't happen. She makes sure that the regions put on notice, their councils put on notice, and she gets a receipt, and she is a pit bull. She will not let go. I mean, if she sends it out and the next day she hasn't heard back, she's back on top of them. Great service. It takes a lot of stress off of us, but this page here, plus we do have a 20-page application, the factum. It's on the website. We're not going to go through that. We just don't have time here today. There's other speakers. I think Liz is up after us. But we've got to get just a little bit of insight for you to see here. We could spend probably, 3-4 hours on it, and then question and answers, who knows. Just to let you know, okay, so you think, great service. What was that retainer? $2,500. Okay, I'm good with $2,500. And then what happens? She says, well, we went kind of over, and Joan called me. I'm on the road. I'm an electrical inspector, and I'm thinking, okay, what is it? Twice? Okay. 3 times, okay? No, it was $15,000, okay? And, okay, here we are. What are you going to do? Whether you file or not, you've already signed on for her service, so we have to go with that. So I'll just scroll down a little bit here, and we'll just review with this, and then I'll have to change over. So this is going to be the application to the Supreme Court of Canada, along with the factum, which I'm not going to present, but it's on the website. And we get a response from counsel and their lawyer, and then our response going back. So it's a bit of a ping-pong match. And I guess the whole intent here is they hope that maybe we're going to come to some kind of settlement. But we're so far apart, it's just not going to happen. So I think there's only like a half a dozen paragraphs here. So we already know it's Upper Canada land titles against the region of Niagara, and that the application of the court decision was incorrect and it did not consider the lands patented prior to April 1st, 1869, as stated in the Public Lands Act, RSO 1990. So if your land was patented before then, the trees are yours. The statute is there to protect your patent. Paragraph 2, the application court decision was incorrect as it did not consider the effect of the bylaw as it affects Her Majesty's rights and prerogatives. The Legislation Act, Section 71. So Section 71 says that any act or regulation shall not affect Her Majesty's rights or prerogatives unless it expresses the intent to do so. So unless the municipality says that we are taking over, we are now above Her Majesty, it's not valid. So these two so far we've explained in both courts, and not a mention of them in the decision. Paragraph 3, the application court decision was incorrect as it did not consider letters patent. And this is, it has the like force and effect for all purposes, as well against Her Majesty as against all other persons whomsoever. So that means the regional council, but it also means the 4 court justices that ruled on this. But again, they didn't make a mention about this. in the decision. The application court decision was incorrect as the bylaw infringed on the right to all the woods and waters, heirs and assigns forever, as stated on my letters patent issued August 12, 1818, and in doing so has dishonored the prerogative of the sovereign. The application court decision was incorrect as it failed to recognize the Crown is bound by its grants, and the application court failed to recognize the overwhelming public importance of the foundation of land granting in Canada. All right, title, and interest in land alienated by the Crown is established through letters patent, and this exercise of the prerogative cannot be impeded nor impaired by the subordinate governance of a municipality. That's our application. I'm just going to change files here, and we'll go to the respondent. Always something. Oops. What do I get? Oh, okay. Oh. Where have I got to go?
Where it says all tools in bold, on the right side above the bar, there's an X.
Just before the X.
This one?
Go to the right.
Oh, close that one there. Okay. There we go. Okay, thank you.
Technical difference.
So, in response, this is the Regions, and we'll see what they said. Please be advised that the active counsel for the Region and Municipality of Niagara, the Region or the respondent, the above noted application for leave to appeal, this correspondence was between the Region application for appeal submitted on this form. Introduction and background. Upper Canada Land Titles and Patent Research Initiative, the applicant, applied under Section 273 of the Municipal Act to quash the Region's bylaw entitled a bylaw to prohibit or regulate destruction or injuring of trees in the woodlands in the Region Municipality of Niagara. The application was dismissed at the first instance by the Superior Court judge with cause. The applicant appealed to the Ontario Court of Appeal and was dismissed with cost. The respondent region and upper tier municipality is defined by Section 1 of the Municipal Act. Section 135 of the Municipal Act explicitly empowers the upper tier municipality to pass bylaws to prohibit or regulate the destruction of trees and woodlands designed by the bylaw. The respondent region specifically cited the powers delegated to the upper tier municipality under Section 135 when the woodlands bylaw was approved by the respondent's regional council on October 22nd, 2020. It was a year later that we had a year to challenge the bylaw, and we did that. So since 2021, this has been in motion, although we were ahead of the time doing it with research. Issues raised on leave to appeal, the respectively position is that all issues or questions raised by the applicant have been previously addressed by this court, and the applicant has failed to establish that the facts and circumstances of the particular case and questions and issues raised by the applicant are sufficient public importance or significance to warrant further consideration of this court. As you can see, what we had put in the application, all of that was raised there, none of it came back, and for some reason Mr. Duxbury fails to remember that. The court has already developed a body of jurisprudence and addresses the evidentiary burden an applicant must meet in order to succeed in an application to quash a municipal bylaw. The court has considered articulating a deferral standard with respect to exercise of municipal power, barring a clear demonstration that a municipal decision was beyond its powers. Court should not hold so. It is uncontested that the respondent was delegated to the power under Section 135 of the Municipal Act and Woodlands Bylaw, the respondent's respectful position is that this matter does not warrant the attention of the court, given the clear delegation of regulatory power to the region and the ratio of existing jurisprudence. Regulation of land use, generally the central issue raised by the applicant on this leave for appeal concerns a regulation of land use and the proposition that the original transfer of ownership or title through means of a crown patent can or should insulate land from local regulation of use. The statutory or common law basis for each of the grounds raised by the applicant vary, but the respondent respectfully submission is that it constitutes a transparent attempt to challenge the regulation of land use by the province or the delegation of that power by the province to local municipalities. The court recently addressed the regulation of use of the land in Annapolis, in Halifax Regional Municipality. The case concerned expropriation, the maximum form of local land use for regulation. In Annapolis group, the court endorsed the view of Cromwell J. and that he was in maritime real estate Nova Scotia Attorney General, and where his honor observed in extensive and restrictive land regulation is the norm. The norm is endorsed by the Court of Annapolis and applies regular and ordinary administrative processes that have been historically used to convey title from or by the Crown to a private landowner. In the facts and circumstances of this case, and given the body of this court's existing jurisprudence, the respondent submits the application for leave should be dismissed with cause. Now, I'm not sure which justice that he read in Annapolis, but he's saying that Annapolis agrees with the region, and that's not the case at all. So even when we asked our lawyer who had backed out, he reviewed this and said the respondent's lawyer should spend some time rereading Annapolis. So in response, what we did was, okay, I know how to do this now. Okay. Thank you, sir. Okay. Whoops. Okay, hang on here. Can I get it that way? No. Yeah, I'm afraid it's going to download something. Hit OK, and all of a sudden the bar go up. It'll be 22 minutes. Okay, so in response, and again, the response was between Joan and I. We spent several evenings trying to come up with how we're going to do it and break it down. But here's what happened. The correspondence is reply of Upper Canada Land Titles and Patent Research Initiative to the Niagara Region's response to our application for leave to appeal. The respondent has raised three main issues in their response to the application for leave. With respect to the first issue entitled Issues Raised on This Leave to Appeal, the respondent states that we, UCLT, have failed to establish the facts and circumstances of the particular case are of sufficient public importance or significance to warrant further consideration by the court. Our position in this statement is incorrect, or all land alienated and privately held in the country is patented. Many of the patents granted land, and certainly most in Ontario, make express grant of all the woods and waters lying and being, subject only to those incidents reserved for the Crown, in this action being trees. Although the white pines were often reserved for the Crown, the reservation has been voided in Ontario for land patented prior to April 1st, 1869. All trees now belong to the patentee, heirs and assigns forever, as per Section 58, Paragraph 3 of the Public Lands Act of Ontario. As discussed in our leave for application, questions were not answered in the lower courts are, have the patents been repealed or altered, and if so, when and by what authority? Has forever lapsed? The term on the patent is heirs and assigns forever. Do municipal governments have the right to overrule the prerogative of the sovereign? Can they remove the rights and prerogative as protected by Section 72 of the Legislation Act of Ontario? And with respect of all of these sufficient public importance to warrant consideration of this court. Oops. No. There we go. But it's, oh, for some reason, okay. In the second issue raised by the respondents is entitled The Application's Burden. The theme here is that the matter does not warrant the attention of the court, given a clear delegation of regulatory power to the region and the ratio of existing jurisprudence. The theme presumes that the Municipal Act entitles the municipal governance future rights were not reserved to anyone but the patentee, heirs and assigns forever. In her humble opinion, without a stated reservation, the honor of the Crown would be now in disrepute. The Crown is bound by its grants, and it is sworn duty of the region of Niagara to defend those rights and prerogative of the sovereign. The third issue raised by the respondent is entitled Regulation of Land Use. The respondent contends that each issue raised by ULTC constitutes a transparent attempt to challenge the regulation of land use by the province or the delegated municipalities. This is not the case. We presented many current provincial statutes, including the Public Lands Act, the Conveyancing and Law and Property Act, the Evidence Act, and the Real Property Limitations Act, but they were not considered in the decision, yet each supports our position. The respondent portrays the original transfer of ownership or title through the means of a Crown patent as a typical conveyance. It was not. These grants were gifts of land, presents from the sovereign of the Crown. They were the prerogative of the sovereign, with the heading of the patent reading, "To all these presents shall come greeting." A typical conveyance is not a present from the sovereign of imperial government and establishes a holding in fee simple. Our challenge is that much about respect for the Constitution and the intent of the sovereign as it is about rights to land and its incidents granted through letters patent. It was presented as a constitutional question, claiming the Niagara Regional Woodland Bylaw is ultra-virus. We have quoted current provincial statutes supporting our position. We have provided copies of the matter of record of imperial letters patent, and yet the courts have failed to acknowledge their validity, and question remains unresolved. For the reason discussed above, and in the application for leave to appeal, UCLT submits that leave to appeal should be granted. So that's where we are. If anybody has a question,
We're gonna take questions at 3 o'clock.
Okay.
We have a whole, town hall.
and I see we're going over, so
Yeah.
you've got this on at the back of the room. We have a website now up. Get that, and we have got everything on it, including the factum, and we're going to be putting our prior factums to our original application and to the appeals court as well, so you can see what was stated and what the decision was. Oh, I'm sorry. So, anyways, it will be up on our website, and which is now up and running. Okay?
Yep. The website has links to the Facebook page, so although the website is not interactive, you can't talk to us on it. Go to the Facebook page and we'll be on there every day answering questions. So everything is linked together. You can get all the answers that you need. And for those who don't know what letters patent are, we will explain everything. Just send us a question. That's all.
Thank you, Joan and Tony. I imagine there's quite a few people here on information overload right now. Probably people have never heard of the Crown Land Patents before. If you go onto the Ontario Landowners Association website, there's a link on how to get your land patents, and it's good to get a certified copy of it. As you've heard, we're really using that to try and protect our private property rights, so I urge everybody to go onto that. The Ontario Landowners Association website has so much information on there. I urge everybody to go on. Now, our next speaker is Elizabeth Marshall. She's got so many titles behind her name that my memory's not good and I don't have enough paper with me. So I will let Liz come up and she can do her introductions. I'm afraid I've done this to her before.
Everybody, can you hear me? I'm a little glib today because this is the first time in like 3 or 4 years I've seen so many people I know. So who am I? Well, my name is Elizabeth Marshall. I am the president of All Rights Research. I'm the director of research for the Ontario Landowners Association. I am the past chair for the Canadian Justice Review Board. I do legal, legislative, and other forms of research for MPs, MPPs, lawyers, law firms. I am a nerd with an attitude. Anyways, now I have to get a little serious with y'all. We have a huge, I like being able to see people. We have a huge problem in this province. We have new municipal councils. The majority of them are completely new. Unbeknownst to them and you, staff was pretty busy when we were all sleeping during the pandemic. And I'm dead serious. Now, I don't know if any of you have heard of the Municipal Councilor's Guide. If you haven't, write it down, go get it. Okay? In that guide, it lays out specifically in sections 7 and 8 the authority for bylaws for municipal councilors. It's supposed to explain it to them, and you all think that they've read it. No. And I'm kind of quasi sticking up for the councilors in a way, but in a way I'm not. You see, I ran for mayor, and I wanted to see exactly what a candidate went through when they went to these candidate meetings. And so the clerks, the wonderful clerks we have, they brought in a consultant who actually does the consulting speaking and the orientation with AMO, which is the Association of Municipalities of Ontario. Huge organization. And what he told these councillors enraged me. He had the audacity to tell the councillors, well, you know, they tell you you're supposed to read the Municipal Act, but it's really long, it's really boring, it's really confusing, but it makes a good doorstop. This is the law that is to govern our municipal councils. Then, at the end of the meeting, because being the person that I am, some call me an SDer, I asked this supposed fine, upstanding, retired CAO consultant who is instructing our municipal maybe councillors, should you not be advising all of these fine people to obtain a copy of the Municipal Councilor's Guide so that they know exactly what they're getting into when they get elected? He looked at me straight in the eye, and then he looks at the back where there was 7 or 8 clerks. And then he looks back at me and he says, oh, don't bother. He says, just talk to the clerks. Well, it took me 15, 20 minutes to get home that night, and then I fired off one of the most scathing emails that Doug Ford has ever gotten, as well as the Minister of Municipal Affairs, explaining this situation. And I don't know if any of you deal with government. I had a response within 3 days from the ministry that they would be taking over and redoing the seminar in my area with people from the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing, not the consultants. And the clerks would be advised. That is wrong, because all of these people that are running for election are being misinformed, because they are all told, listen to staff, talk to staff. Staff knows, staff are the experts. They go for orientation for days down in Toronto, and that's exactly what they're told. And the reason that I know what's in section 7 and 8 of the Councilor's Guide, in 2010, that information was not in there, that they were to know and understand the constitutions, that they were to know and understand all of these other pieces of legislation. So I worked with a lawyer. And Donna Burns, where are you, Donna? Right here. This lovely lady here got 17 of her municipalities together, and Terry Green, the lawyer I was working with, and myself we did a seminar for those 17 municipalities. And word got out that the municipal councillors were not being informed of what their duties and obligations are. So, since 2013, there was a kind of an amendment to councillors as lawmakers and your authorities, because then they had to include the fact that municipal councillors actually have an obligation to know and understand the Constitution and the Charter and 95 other pieces of legislation they need to read to fully understand what they are supposed to be doing as municipal councillors. And the reason I talk to all of this is because I am such a nerd with an attitude. Because I have done a study. I have every municipal act back to 1841. Talk about snooze or lose your life. Like, my God. Anyways, so I've read them all. I know more about the Constitution of this Canada than the majority of lawyers, and I beat lawyers up. That's why lawyers hire me now to do research for them. That's what I do. So the reason I am here about this dire situation, in 2019, there was a push by the CAOs and the clerks to have the municipal council pass all of the councillors' authority to the CAO and clerks. You know how y'all say, well, we didn't vote for them staff, we voted for our councillors. Why aren't they doing things for us? That's why. I have gone through it. In the Municipal Councillor's Guide, you're going to eventually find a section in regards to delegation of powers and authority. And it's going to tell you that you need to read Section 23.1 to 23.5 of the Municipal Act. Now, Section 23.1 tells council you can delegate whatever you want. Section 23.2 says, well, here are a few restrictions that maybe you shouldn't be doing. Section 23.3 tells them these are the powers and authority that you can never delegate. Staff kept leading out that Section 23.3, that's Section 23.4, and that's Section 23.5. The councillors do not know that they are to read that municipal act in its entirety, in its normal and grammatical sense, to fully understand what Parliament or the legislators are saying in that document. Now, those are not my words. That's the words of the Supreme Court of Canada. So here's a court case for you. Everybody ready? Write it down. It's called Vavilov. V-A-V-I-L-O-V. And you're going to think, what the heck does that have to do with municipalities? Because it involves immigration. Well, I think at about page 135 in that ruling, it clearly states that municipal bylaws are regulations. And regulations are restricted. And they are restricted by Section 16 of the Interpretations Act. And the reason that is very, very important is because a lot of these bylaws that are being passed, they have no standing in law. Because they are not using the verbiage, the words that are in the legislation that is granting them the power to make that regulation in the first place. But back to this delegation of authority bylaw. So I started seeing it in this municipality, in that municipality, in that municipality, throughout the entire province. Then I hit on one. The City of Oshawa's council grew a backbone and a brain. They sent their bylaw in regards to the delegation of authority to their CAO to their legal department. And the legal department made very short work of the CAO. I have that legal opinion. But the Vavilov case also clearly states that not only do municipalities have to be reasonable with their bylaws, they must be correct in law. Now, I'm armed and dangerous now because every councillor in this province should be just having a hissy fit. So what I have done is, with one municipality, because we have a new group, guys, the Grey Highland Landowners Association. Yay! This group, they're new to all of this, but they have spit and vinegar, and they want their community back. They are fed up with, are you ready for this? The council, because a staff report came forward, they have those big garbage bins that the robotic trucks come along and empty the garbage bins. Well, because there's a lot of part-time residents in this community, and a lot of people just don't like the bins because some of them are bigger than the little old ladies that live there, staff had a brain fart, and yes, I use that term a lot, and they decided they were going to spend $17,553, was it, to buy red garbage bags for those who do not want to use the big bins. And when they turn in the big bins, they're going to get 52 red garbage bags that they can take to the dump themselves. This is the idiotic things that are sapping away all of your taxpayers' money. Like, there are so many bylaws that have been passed. So as it stands right now, since 2018, I have stopped a tree preservation bylaw 6 times by using the law and just bringing it. That's what I do. And this last one, because we have a new council, half of them, I decided to kind of take it easy with them. So instead of sending them one of my gargantuan reports, every day from September the 5th until, October the 18th? No, the 12th. They received an email from me explaining the unlawfulness of their tree preservation bylaw. And I did a deep dive even into the fact that there are court rulings out there that specifically tell municipalities, guess what? You can't pass regulation that is prohibitive, and particularly if you are trying to use the amount of money you are going to charge for permits, fees. If it's going to be prohibitive. Now, you have to understand about this tree preservation bylaw I'm dealing with. It's a minimum of $4,500 to get a permit to cut 4 trees. And if they deem it necessary, you will have to do an environmental impact study, which is over 50 grand. So as it stands right now, I have taken one councillor to the Integrity Commissioner, because you also, in the bylaw, have to have a certified landscaper, arborist, forester, et cetera, to do reports to choose which trees you are allowed to cut. This lovely councillor's husband is a landscaper. He owns his own business. Not to mention, she is of the belief that tree preservation bylaw permits should be so expensive as to act as a deterrent. So the Integrity Commissioner now has a lot of reading, but they tried to bamboozle me. Do not let them bamboozle you. Here's an example for you. I sent the information through to the Integrity Commissioner because it said on the town website to send her an email. I did that. So then she came back to me and she said, "You haven't followed proper procedure." To me. So I went to the website and I clicked on the little link, page not found, error. Immediately the screenshot. So then I got that all put together and I fired it back at the commish and the clerk and all of the senior management team and the council members. Boy, did that not get fixed quick. But in the meantime, because I do deep dives into documents, I went and I actually found the form that you need to fill out in a very old report from the Integrity Commissioner. So I filled it out and I lodged my formal complaint. Now, if the Integrity Commissioner has a brain, she will rule against the councillor because I've presented minimum 7 pages of information. If she does not, she has no clue that I am actually building up a case to send off to the Ombudsman's office in regards to the Integrity Commissioner. That's what you do. Every email, every letter, every time the clerk's office gets back to me saying, thank you for your email, Elizabeth. I am forwarding it on, confirming that the council and everyone involved will receive a copy of your email. I save it. You say every single thing. Because that is you building a case for what you will need in future if necessary. So that's the big thing. Now, I have 5 minutes, so I'm going to burn you with what I did while you were all sleeping. Am I okay to do that? I was elected to be the chairperson for the Canadian Justice Review Board in 2020 when the pandemic hit. Unknown to a lot of people here, there was a lot of stuff going on at the federal level that I had to make comment on and do research into. But the biggest one, and I'm going to take the win on this one, is the Emergencies Act. You see, I got really, really angry about that because my father explained to me when I was a kid all about the War Measures Act because he was a veteran. And when Pierre Elliott Trudeau brought in the War Measures Act, my dad he almost had a complete fit on that based on the fact that that was martial law for every Canadian. So, when I heard that they were enacting the Emergencies Act, being the person that I am, and understanding the complete ramifications of all of that, I immediately contacted my colleagues on the Justice Review Board, and I put together a letter to the Governor General. And I explained to not only the Governor General, but later on to all of the senators, that this did not meet the criteria that is laid out in the War Measures Act. And the reason I say that is September the 11th, 2001, the United States of America implemented Article 5 of the NATO agreement. A strike on one is a strike on all. We were in a state of war. And the Emergency Act was not pulled out. The dust was not taken off it. We did not use it. So I explained to the Governor General and the senators that a bunch of truckers, whether they were there or not, at any of the crossings or anything else, does not constitute the use of that document in implementing martial law on each and every Canadian in this country. Then I went to the senators and I did it all over again. And this time I did it as myself, but I think they're starting to know who I am. But anyways, but I sent it from myself, not as chairperson from the Canadian Justice Review Board. And I explained to them that my father was a war veteran. I explained to them that I understood the full ramifications of implementing that act. And I also explained that it didn't meet the criteria. Now, because I do research for MPs and MPPs and all that kind of stuff, I do sometimes get some background information, some background news. Justin Trudeau did not revoke that. He had to. And how about I just leave it at that and let your little imaginations run really wild? So that was one of them. The other one was the minimum sentencing. We had to do comment on the minimum sentencing that's in the Criminal Code of Canada. And you would not believe how many, I would say, ill-informed judges we have and justice of the peace. But you see, this is the other thing too. To be a justice of the peace, I can be a justice of the peace. I'm not a lawyer. I don't give legal advice. I can walk in and just say, I want to be a justice of the peace, and here are the people that are vouching for me, and your name gets put on the list. Anybody can be a justice of the peace. And then you got to take a few courses to become a justice of the peace. But then that ties my hands. because then I am covered by the rules of the court, so I can't call out all these ne'er-do-wells for what they do. But anyways, there was that. There was the education of judges. We had to make comment on that. We had to make comments on a lot of things. But every day, well, folks were at home sleeping, we were working. And the Ontario Landowners Association was working too, because I was doing double duty at that time. And anything that happened with the OLA, and there was a lot of things, and you can quietly ask Tom about that if you'd like. There was a lot of things going on with the OLA at that time as well. But I can guarantee you, everything that happened during the pandemic, and particularly after the pandemic with the convoy, those folks should not be charged with mischief. I know that. I figured actually that they were going to wait past the 18 months so that they could dismiss the charges because it waited too long for the court. I was kind of hoping for that, but then that's not a real ruling for everyone else. And as for the Rouzeau ruling, he already said in his ruling, there are people in this country with greater minds than mine who may disagree with me. I was all over that like a wet shirt. Anyways, folks, questions and everything else, because Bob's there and he's got a hunger on because they're bringing lunch in. So any questions and all that stuff, catch me later, and I have books at the back for sale if you want. Thank you again for coming. Woo!
Okay, just before we break for lunch, I'm going to revoke what Liz had said. There's 2 or 3 people with books for sale. I would like those people to bring the books up to the front. That way they can be up here to sell them during the lunch break. And I would like those people to be able to be first in the lineup to eat. That way they're going to be free to be able to come up and look after that stuff. We're going to have this is your last chance to buy the raffle tickets. There's going to be about 15 items that are going to be raffled off. At 1 o'clock, we're going to start and do about 7 of them, and we're going to do the other ones at about 3 o'clock at our next break. So I guess I've spoken enough for now. Let's break for lunch.
I'm not sure which one. There it is. I'm Don Johnson, president of the Hamilton Halton Landowners Association. It's got to be that one. I'm Don Johnson, president of the Hamilton Halton Landowners Association. And I just want to say thank you to every one of you that has come here today and taken this day to listen about your rights. I have a couple quick questions that I'd just like for a show of hands. How many people are members of the Ontario Landowners Association? Thank you. How many people in this room have not heard about the Ontario Landowners Association or been involved in a meeting before this meeting? That's a good turnout. On a day like today, I congratulate you for coming out. We've had a chance to hear some really good speakers this morning, and the fact is that I think you're starting to realize that the Ontario Landowners Association is an association that's there to back you and your demands for your property rights. The foundation of this country was based on property rights, and you need to be here in this battle with us. How many people have currently got their OLA membership card? I'm going to encourage everybody that before you leave this meeting today, that you sign up and become a member of the Ontario Landowners Association. It's important. It's one of the best investments that you can make for you and your children in the next 50 years. The battles we fight are what is going to give the future to our children. It gives us our rights. There are a lot of battles that are happening. The case with Tony and Kaluzny. That is a critical battle that's going to need a lot of funding. I'm going to ask how many people in this room have a farm? Show of hands. If you are a farm owner or a property owner, I'm going to encourage you to consider giving an amount equivalent to $50 or $100 per acre for every acre you own to the case that Tony is doing. That will give you a receipt. You write that off as a cost of legal advice asking the question, is my crown grant a legal document? The government will give you money, write it off. It's a cost of production. And what you'll do is we will find out, and when we win that case in the courts, it's going to get everybody off your back. It'll be the best investment you ever made on your farm. So I encourage you to come to the paddle and join us. And I encourage you strongly, join the OLA. Thank you very much.
Folks, I'd like to introduce Maggie Hope Braun. Maggie is the founder of Gather 2030, a community-based organization of people working with their municipalities, explaining the United Nations takeover of local levels of government. Here's Maggie, folks.
Hello, everyone. It is so great to be here. Can you hear me okay? Am I properly on there? So we're having some technical difficulties. I have a awesome PowerPoint presentation with really nice videos and everything, so maybe they're going to work on that while we get it going. I'm going to get someone to hold it for me. Yeah, for sure. So I'm just going to get that going. Winging it. We're going to wing it. Winging it is the way to go. All right. And I'll plug that in. There we go. Thank you. And that's what it's all about, delegating and helping to work together and support each other. So I will pull the PowerPoint up here, though, to kind of keep me on track. So thank you for the introduction, Donna. At this point, Gather 2030 is a concept in my mind. It is a newsletter, and it is a place where I'm sharing the things that I see are the most effective solutions to help to gather the people and move us forward. I'm going to turn that around a bit. I had a feeling. It's so funny. I pictured myself when I got here and there was no projector on the screen. I thought, I'm going to be standing here like this holding my computer. So I should not have envisioned that because here I am. So I'll just go into the PowerPoint presentation from this slide here and stay as on track as I intended to. You know, I don't think any of us knew when we were growing up that we would be doing this kind of stuff. You know, I was blessed to have, maybe after, I was blessed to be able to travel the world when I was a young child. Not the world. I mainly spent the first 4 years of my life in a jungle village in Papua New Guinea, and that is just off the coast of Australia. And it was the last island that was found in the world. And thousands of tribes, thousands of religions, thousands of languages. And that we all know, or those who study childhood education, we know that those are our formative years. So it has, even though we don't remember those years so much, they have a big impact on who we are and who we become as we grow up. So that was one of the places we went. And then we also went to St. Lucia in the Caribbean. And I remember when I was about 12 years old, just looking at the man with his little family and his little house on the beach and a mango tree. And I thought, gosh, that is all I want when I grow up. If I could just live by the ocean and catch fish and be in a beautiful, colorful village, that's the kind of life for me. So, and you can see when you travel that it doesn't take much for people to be happy and content with their life. And I think that that's kind of what most of us want. We want to be able to have a piece of land. We want to be able to raise our families. We want to be able to have our food sources and our community. And when I came back to Canada at a young age, when I came back to Canada, my father leaned over to me on the plane, and And he said, Maggie, you're going to love Canada. He said, Canada is a place of freedom and democracy. And you have to remember, I was 4 years old, and that had an impact on me. That was a pivotal moment in my life where I'm going to remember, you know, landing in Canada for the first time, and Dad telling me this is a place of freedom and democracy. So I always wondered what those words meant. And as I grew up, and as we heard today, the stories of how the government is getting in the way of us just living our lives, to the point that it's heartbreaking, to the point that we're spending our lives not enjoying our little lot of land and our families and our communities, but fighting against a structure that seems just so twisted and bent and in layers and layers of legislation and acts that it's mind-boggling. It's, you know, I studied a little bit about narcissism at some point in my life, and they call that word salad. You know, there's nothing, you have to dig all through it. So it really led me to that collective question I think that we're all asking. Is Canada a place of freedom and democracy? Because I think we need to figure out if that answer is yes or no. And we need to decide if it's no, we need to stop acting like it is and start to do something about it, and start to look for the solutions and start to work together to find what the next step is. There's no point in spending our energy on things and strategies that aren't going to get us anywhere. I think we're all tired at this point. We're exhausted. Our healthcare system's broken down to the point that people don't even want to go into it, right? So our health is wearing down. We're in a psychological battle. All of this has been planned for over a century, and what we're up against is serious, and we are in serious times, and we're good people. And I look around this room, and I listen to your stories, and I talk to you. I know we're among intelligent people here too, and it's time that we recognize that and deal and face the reality and start working together. So I'll go back there a touch. So that's me. I testified at the Public Order Inquiry, Emergency Act Inquiry, the Rouleau Commission. So it's so good to be here with Tom tonight. It's our first time. I think we saw each other at Christine Anderson's briefly when she spoke in Toronto. And so I haven't worn this since the commission, so I thought I would pull it out for Tom's, for the sake of that memory. And so glad that we can all be together. I met a lot of organizers and important people at that commission, and was very blessed. And by being there at that commission, it made it so that whenever I went to other events, people recognized me. So I started to get a lot of people coming up to me and talking and sharing their stories and sharing their ideas about what's going on and sharing their solutions to that. So I became kind of a gathering hub of solutions. And that really worked well for me, because even before the convoy, I had this big whiteboard and I was trying to map out, okay, what can I do to make this better? What can I do to make to help, you know? And then I started to see that we actually had many of the pieces that we needed in place, but they weren't connected yet. And then the convoy happened and it brought us all together. So it was kind of the next step of that. Okay, I'm going to move forward. Thank you.
Could you open your email and
Yep.
accept Anthony's invitation?
Yep.
We'll see if we'll get you operational.
Awesome. Okay. Operational sounds good. I think that's what we all need. We need to get operational. Okay. So, did he send it to this one?
From your last communication.
Okay. right, that's great. So I created, the word gather kept coming to me. I'd wake up every morning, go to bed every night. And of course, I was going through a lot of personal stuff. I think a lot of people, after the convoy, our personal lives kind of broke down a little bit. You know, we can all admit it. We've all kind of gone through a lot. So it's been about a year or more just to get to a place where I feel grounded enough to start really coming out with the ideas and getting to work on this. But in the meantime, I kept getting this overwhelming sense that I needed to start sharing the ideas that I had and that the ideas that people were sharing with me. So that's where Gather 2030 came in. And now that I've studied a little bit more about Agenda 21 and Agenda 2030, wow, yay! Thank you.
Turn your volume on to play your video.
Teamwork, yay. Oh, that's wonderful. That's wonderful. Now I forgot where I was. Okay, so let's see if I can click on this. The word gather kept coming to me. And if you look up that word gather, it's a pretty cool word. No, come on. Oh, I need to do it on here. No. Will it let me? Which one am I actually functioning on here? I know. I don't. Oh, there we go. Okay. So if you look at that word gather, and it's funny because I didn't even really look up the word. It just kind of was like gather. We need to gather the people. We need to gather the ideas. We need to gather the solutions. And so Gather 2030 is a newsletter. At the top is pinned a blueprint post, and in there I'm putting gathering initiatives for our communities and for our country, as well as defensive initiatives for our communities and ourselves and our country, and offensive initiatives. And all of these are positive things that we can be doing and investing our time and energy into that are completely lawful and, I think, a part of the solution moving forward. And the idea is, sorry, this is I think it's up there. It's good.
Yeah, just
Okay.
preparing for your next slide.
Oh, thank you. Can you bring it down a little bit on that on this one? So I'm going to take that. That's better. Yeah. So the word gather, to bring together and to collect. Some ones that I like here. To summon up, to gather up your courage, right? We need to gather up our courage. To gain by gradual increase, to prepare oneself by mustering strength, to gain or regain control of. I really like that one. To reach a conclusion, often through intuitive hints and through inferences. And that's kind of what I was getting at. Is Canada a place of freedom and democracy? You know, once we come to the conclusion that we're currently not looking at a free and democratic country, then we can do something about it. So down a little bit more. To assemble, and that's part of it. That's part of what the blueprint is about, is to assemble all the pieces together, to put the pieces together so we know what we need to do across the country. Because Canada is a really big country. There is no way we can do what France did. I'm sorry to say. We cannot gather in our capital at a day's notice whenever our government does something that is out of line. We can't do it. Everyone says, look at what the French are doing, and I'm not saying that we can't get good protests and good movements in Ottawa, because we already saw that we could. But ultimately, we need to do something a little different here in Canada, in my opinion, and that is to nationally coordinate the local initiatives across the country, to find the effective initiatives, put them in one place, and bring that across the country and allow people from across the country to initiate those effective strategies, and to work together at a national level to develop those strategies so that we can bring them down. Because this is exactly what we're up against. So we can go back to the PowerPoint for the next slide. Thank you. Wonderful. Okay, so I'm going to spend a little bit of time on what happened there in Ottawa. I love this picture of Justin Trudeau, and it really comes down to that. The government isn't listening. Missing leadership. Last seen lying about and insulting Canadians, right? We came there with serious concerns about violations to our rights. And we came from all across the country. I think it was probably the biggest protest this country has ever seen and ever in our history. Am I correct on that? Absolutely. And what did we get? Did they talk to us? No, they didn't. We set up beautiful delegations to speak. We held rooms that we had professionals, we had doctors, we had Brian Peckford, we had ex-politicians, we had everyone there that could have they could have come and met with us, but they didn't. So what does that tell us? Is Canada a place of freedom and democracy? Do we have a right to representation? I thought we did. So now we have people going to court, Chris and Tamara, and the big thing the other day was the honking. That's what they were talking about, the honking, right? I wrote a little article last year called A Study in Irony, and I went through, and at the end I talked about the honking, because that's what my friends and family, that whenever we do talk, or when we did talk about it, they said, yeah, but the honking, you know? and I'm like, the honking represented our frustration. We'd already petitioned. We'd already protested locally and provincially. We'd already emailed and called and wrote letters. And what did we get? Nothing. Silence. Misrepresentation through the media. Some mayors, I think in Peterborough, what did she call us? I don't even think we want to say it out loud. It was, what did she? She tweeted a very explicit word for us, very dehumanizing. Quote it. I forget. It's not coming to mind. Oh yeah, stay the F home or something. But there was more than that. She even made T-shirts, I think, and wore a T-shirt against us. It was very dehumanizing, and I think we all remember the.
She said, "Stay the fuck home, fuckwall."
Yes. Thank you. And then, of course, the Toronto Star came out with its article, that infamous article, I think, in August, and I have no empathy for the unvaccinated. They shouldn't have a place in our hospital. I hope they die, and all of that. It was absolute craziness. At that point, I was up north trying to work get a community off the ground, because that's where I thought I was going to have to live, because I couldn't leave the country. This is serious times, very serious times. So of course, those who were in Ottawa and watched it, we know we hugged, we honked, we loved each other, we shared, we connected on a very deep level, and it was a beautiful thing. I'm going to just jump one there. And I like to think of it as the salt of the earth came together into one place. And all of us felt at one point that we were all alone and maybe had a few good neighbors on our side, or a few people, at least for me, across the country, because I had just moved from British Columbia. So my support network wasn't nearby. And here we were, all in one place and connecting online and all of that. And what we created there were human connections. And as we did that, we started to exchange contact information. We started to follow up and keep in touch. We started to share ideas. And then we started to connect people with other people we knew as we were sharing those ideas. Oh, hey, I know somebody who's doing that too. You should meet this person. And the connections began. So it really, really is amazing. And this is exactly what they don't want. Is there a way to open that link? So it started this face-to-face networking that we then extended into hometown networking. So I'm just going to play this very short video by Dr. Shiva, and he talks about this. This is, we're 8 billion people or so in this planet, and there's literally about 10,000 people that are networked together, maybe some more at different levels, but a key 10,000 people across this country, across this world, that are implementing all of this and keeping us in a state of division and disorder and looking to them to save us, right? And the people who created the problem, they are not going to give the real solution. Can we play that? How do I get that a bit closer?
This is what I call the elites. Let's say there's about 10,000 of them. How does these people are getting all these people? There's a lot of naive people. They think, oh, it's the wrong
The sound's coming from the other one.
They don't understand
Gonna work? It doesn't really sound like it. It picks up on my sound more than. Has anyone seen this already? Yeah, you've seen it? It's really good. He does a great job explaining it. But basically what he's saying there, we can pause it. Basically what he's saying there is, and I'll just have a look at what it says down here. They thrive when the people are divided, isolated, disconnected, disorganized, helpless, and looking to the elites for leadership. That's right. Well, that word, parasites, right, is a better one. So, and I just wanted to read just below that. Perfect. I parallel this to a narcissistic relationship. They want us weak. They thrive when we're weak, when we're scattered, when we are confused, when we don't have a support network. That's how they are winning against us. And what we need to do at that point is to recognize the importance of our support networks and do more, focus more on those positive community building and gathering initiatives. So I'm going to skip back, I think, to the next slide. So when I was in Ottawa, I met a ton of people, and I added them on my Facebook. 5 minutes? Oh my gosh. Okay, thank you. Like I said, I'm kind of new to public speaking, and sometimes you just got to do what you're called to do and asked to do. So if I go like that, is it going to jump? Okay. I like it when I work better under pressure. So, all right. So we started networking in Peterborough, I went around and connected with as many people as I could. I found out what their strengths were, what they were interested in, and found if there was other people interested in that, and just started promoting what they were doing and getting more people out to their events. And one group was working in the town councils, and we found that there was like 0 to 2 people in our town councils. And John Dunn, a lawyer from there, he wanted to go for the climate change, declaration of climate change, and I took ecosystem management and woke up to the climate change hoax in 2007. So I was happy to come alongside and support him in that. And we did a couple delegations, and it really woke people up, especially to the UN takeover of our municipalities. And from there, we started to get, after that delegation, come on, stay there. After that delegation, Justin Trudeau landed in Peterborough and met with, of course, the mayor and the CAO and the mainstream media reporter. And at that time, we were preparing to come to Dummer, to Warsaw here, to address the town council here. And it was amazing. There was a couple ladies, Lynn in the back, Sue. I know I don't want to name them all because I know some of them don't want to be named, so I won't name everyone. And they had been looking at the official plan, and of course, all these official plans that have 2050 at the end of it, they're all the agenda of the UN. So they're all UN Sustainable Development Agenda goals. And basically what they were trying to do here, like they're doing everywhere, is drive all future growth to settlement areas and basically dissolve the prosperity of the rural regions of Canada. They're also using faulty mapping to designate all of the land under their provincial mapping so that they can make it so that you can't sever off pieces of your land and you can't do this or that and so on. And they're all doing it with their town clerks who aren't from the area, and they are working in consultation with international organizations to come up with these official plans and strategic plans and everything. So we brought this to the attention of the council here in Douro, and I just absolutely was shocked at the response. I had a feeling that we would have much better progress in the small towns than in the cities, and I believe that we should, with these kinds of initiatives. I know some of you live in cities and you got to keep the pressure on, but we can more than likely turn the councils and turn the people of the rural municipalities and regions back over into hands of people with integrity quicker, because what they did is one after the other. They said what was said, what she said is true. There's facts to what she said, and I think it's time that we stand and be counted. And I can't, in good conscience, approve the official plan. It is a death sentence to our municipality. And he brought up the mapping and said why are they asking us to pass it when they know that the mapping is wrong? So one after the other, they said we're not passing it and we need more public consultation. And so that is where it's at. And now the team here in Douro has taken it, they've asked for a procedural change so that they can actually have 5-minute delegates speak to the issues that are on the agenda at last minute notice. And now so we had 65 people when I went to speak that night, and it really helped. And now they have 60 people there on a regular basis, and it really helps. And they're actually discussing local issues. So it's one, it goes back to the network. One person meeting another person, sharing the ideas, supporting each other, getting behind each other, rebuilding that community. So I really, hats off to the mayor and councillors of Douro-Dummer. And I love the fact that this first win happened in Warsaw, because Warsaw is the first country or the first city that they invaded in Poland. So we want to retake it. This is a battle by the pen. And again, going back to the network, Joel and Margaret Sussman, they are from Aurora. We all hopefully did. Who hasn't seen their video? Time to play this, but basically Joel and Margaret, Joel is a wordsmith, so I posted the speech template online, and he took that template and he absolutely threw a bullseye with it, and he refined it, and this is what we want. All of the stuff that is here, truth is, nobody owns the truth. And the words that we need to get out there, we overcome by the power of our testimony. We overcome by the words that we speak. And after Joel and Margaret did this amazing delegation, they had a 1-minute standing ovation, including by, I think, 2 of the councillors also stood and gave them an ovation. And it has gone absolutely viral, and it is getting across the globe. So these delegations have just gone across the globe. Over in Kawartha Lakes, the team there has been doing delegations. They've had town halls. They've invited the councillors. They've been letting the people speak to the issues on how these bylaws are affecting them, and they're doing amazing work. So like Margaret Mead said, never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever had. And I look around this room, guys, all we need is a few people in each town to start working together and to put the mission before the ego and go forward from there. And it is important to know what the mission is. They've been working with Sheila, who's here today, and she has put together on her website, I'd pull it up, but it's a bit too much work. It's right there, sheila.ca, and I think amazing work. She is exposing the public-private partnership and the municipal fraud, and she has the POGG primer on her website, and she's been very quick to respond back to people. So if you have any questions, put it forward to her website there. It's easy to remember, sheila.ca. And she's here today. Sheila, if you want to wave your hand, that way people can come and speak to you. And I'm almost done. I work better when I'm on a time crunch, sorry. So, we're up against organizations like ICLEI, an International Council on Local Environmental Initiatives. What we are missing is local councils on local issues. 0 people in our town council has not helped for the last 30 years. And, across this country, we need people in every riding to at least, be a representative to say, I'm going to watch these councils, I'm going to see what's going on, and to start working with the national people across the country who have the solutions to move forward. And from there, we do need to start having our own town halls. We need to be discussing these local issues and getting the numbers and the support base up. Once we start bringing it to the people, what is going on at the local level, you bet they care, and they'll start showing up. And when they know that they can come together with their neighbors and have a voice, that's how we build community, right? Also, local newsletters. We cannot rely on Facebook anymore. They won't let us share the news. We can't rely on the local newspapers. Substack is free. Every community should have a local newsletter, and when you find like-minded people, get them onto it and start sharing every event that is taking place that is within that like-minded circle, and for families and for community services and for everything. We need to rebuild the village, right? And people need to be able to be brought into that through some source, and to me, community newsletters are key. And in Kamloops, they've done just that. They've done a great job setting up a group of citizens that work together to do this. And as well, I've been very much impressed. We heard people talk about the man who went to Switzerland and he learned about private property rights. we have a lot to learn from countries like that. And Civis for Reform is a group that is doing just this. They're helping people to find a representative in every area to hold the government accountable at all levels and bring that information to the people and start having people assemblies so that those people, the people of the area, can decide what kind of system reform that they want. So everyone who's reached out to me as far as help for in your municipality, the Wednesday night meeting is literally filled with people that are discussing that and working together and sharing their knowledge. So, you know, organizers from every community, leads of different organizations across this country. It's time that we put them all together in one spot and we show this country what it looks like to have some leadership again. And we don't have to form a political party to do that. We can just form a group of citizens, if you want to use that word, a group of men and women, people, to start stepping up as leaders in their community, and then they'll naturally become the leaders of that community. And we don't know what the future looks like. Like we said, we're dealing with a broken system, and it needs reform, and it's time for reform. So I was in Ottawa last week, and with Civis for Reform, we launched the Shame on Parliament Canadians Declare Non-Confidence campaign, and basically just driving home the point that the members of Parliament, their conduct no longer reflects our values, and no longer, in my opinion, has the consent of the governed. My community, you guys, I don't think that we're consenting to this form of government, and it's not working for us. So shame on Parliament. And this is really not for the politicians, because they're not listening. We stood there with the sign and they walked by, they diverted their eyes, they didn't want to see it. They're not listening. Some of them are. But this is a call out to our fellow Canadians, right? And we cannot win this with 5% of the population, ultimately. We need to get the people of Canada to recognize the situation we're in and to come out of it with us. And I did get to meet Leslyn Lewis while I was there, and I thanked her for doing the petition. It's very well worded. This is a federal petition. Hopefully everyone can sign and share it. And it's all about the United Nations and how the consequences on the people of Canada for implementing these agreements outweighs the benefits, and she does a great job with that. So we're... So I got to give her a bit of a hug. Anyway, I didn't realize when I pressed that button it would.
I'll take a screenshot after, thank you.
So that was fun, and I'll be back there next week, hopefully, and I would like to stand with that sign with a flag from every province and have representatives from every province standing behind it, and to start almost theatrically casting people into these roles of spokespeople for each province, and even, you know, Minister of Health, and have Dr. Shoemaker there, and other people like that, people who can speak to these issues and show the country what it looks like to have someone speak for you in front of Parliament, and just really, you know, have some fun with it, but make our point. So I like to look around. I see the similar faces. I meet new people all the time. And I think that we're witnessing the birth of a new society. I think that together we can create positive change, and that we have a shared vision and a greater mission, and everyone has their part to play. And I will never lose hope when that is the case, when we have each other, because had there been no hope, we would have never found each other, and we would not be having these conversations, and we would not be at a place where we can potentially get together and organize across the country. So I have a lot more ideas for how to move forward with this, and I'm going to keep them to myself a little bit longer. I'm going to spend the next month working with Civis for Reform and working on the templates so that we can get better organized across the country. I hope you guys can join there. It's as simple as filling out an intake form, and then you can come in. I'm in there every Wednesday night at 7:30, and then we're breaking off into committees to discuss different different key priorities and strategies. And then we can roll out some really awesome behind the scenes initiatives to gather the people and get us organized. Because whether this goes down by pen or by sword, we still need to be organized across the country at the local level. And I believe that all of this was done with the pen, and we can undo it with the pen, and we got to do it, right? Serious times, serious measures, and I'm so glad to be born on this earth at this time with all of you. And don't lose hope. Just try your best to keep focused on the positive solutions. And thank you for the Ontario Landowners Association and everyone here. Thanks so much.
Okay. I'm hoping you can hear me okay. This works? You can hear me? All right. I have no technology to worry about other than this microphone, so you're stuck with just me. I'm the visual aid for this, okay? Who are the lawyers in the room? Really? Okay. How many people voted for me? Okay, you can stay. The rest have to go on that side of the wall. Here. It's okay. It's okay. I lost. I'm still unemployed. I just want to say that there are meetings like this happening all over Canada and all over North America. I know because I've gone to a lot of them. So it seems maybe sometimes like these groups are little islands, a little bit isolated, but you're not. I've been in meetings like this as far away as Alberta. I know that these kinds of meetings happen in Nova Scotia and Newfoundland. They're important, and I know that sometimes they seem like they're small, but they're actually really big. You know, I'm a landowner as well. I have 138 acres. I don't live there yet. I'd like to get there. But I just want to say, recently we applied for a entrance permit onto our own land. A permit to get onto our own land with our car. An entrance permit, $250. Napanee, north of Napanee. Recently, sorry? Yeah. Recently, I got a well put in. It took me 1.5 years to get a well. $4,300 for the well, because it's very shallow. It's 36 feet. $1,500 of that was the environmental fee. How much did the environment get? Because I don't know where that money went other than that. So before I really get sort of deep into what I want to talk about, there's this idea that I think is really important. And it's important because it's how do we expend our energy. And so when I talk about this, and I'm not the only one, I'm not original to this idea. It's an American who came up with the 3 circles. You have your circle of control, your circle of influence, and your circle of concern. I spend the vast majority of my time inside my circle of control. I use my circle of influence to use my influence into something that I can control. But my circle of concern is something that's completely outside of my control, outside of my influence. I can't do anything about the WEF. But I can be concerned about it, and I can listen to other people that have the ability to influence that. But where I'm going to spend all my time and energy is always going to be first in my circle of control, in my circle of influence. And again, I want to convert my influence into something I can control. So we could go down these rabbit holes, and we all know in this room that there are many rabbit holes to go down. There are many. Everything from snakes in water and all sorts of stuff, everything. You can really pick things apart, okay? You can. But does it serve your circle of control? Does it serve your circle of influence? If it doesn't, don't spend a lot of time and energy on it. You can't afford to. I ran. I've had issues in the past with the Conservation Authority on my old land that I had. And it always begged the question, if I spend the money, I pay the taxes, I have the insurance, I take on 100% of the liability, and I'm responsible for the actions of people on my land, do I really control my land? Is it really mine? If the government puts no money and no stake into my land whatsoever, why do I have to yield to their dictates? It is my land. But that's not what we have, is it? We don't have that kind of a situation in Canada. And that's just one example. Who's heard the term inalienable rights or unalienable rights? Who's heard that term? Okay, this is why I asked about the lawyers, because this is where I'm going to get challenged. Would it surprise you to know that there is no term inalienable or unalienable rights in the Constitution of Canada or in the Charter of Rights? It doesn't exist. It's an American term. It was actually first coined in the American Declaration of Independence through Thomas Jefferson. Inalienable rights are rights that are so true, so self-evident, so obvious that they can't be taken away from you. They can't be transferred to another person. We actually don't have that in our legal system at all. So the reason I mention this is because we believe that we have certain rights. We've probably all thought about inalienable rights before, or at least pondered it and thought, okay, I've got these God-given rights. Turns out you don't. You really don't. And we look at land and we say, but that is sort of the foundation of the rights that we believe that we have as citizens of a country, of a democratic country. Turns out we really don't. Okay, we have a parliamentary system, but when we look at this parliamentary system, what are we in Canada? Are we a democracy? Are we socialists? Are we fascists? Are we a republic? We don't really know what the hell we are as Canadians, do we? I think if you really want to focus on the communism part, just look at the way our land is treated. Look at the way we are treated by our governments when it comes to land. So, I get asked a lot, what do you do? What do you think's coming next? What should we do? And the truth is, I don't know either. I don't have all the answers, but I have a lot of ideas. And I was really encouraged to hear, Maggie talking about local action, because I think that's really where it has to happen. If you accept the premise that for a minimum of 50 years, we have been at war, none of us knew it. None of us knew that our rights were being infringed upon incrementally, not these big moves. For our opposition, whoever they may be, we talk about, they are doing this and they are doing that. We just know that there are these global elites out there that are really making our lives very uncomfortable. But the reality is, they have been at this for decades, and we had no idea. Our school systems have been subverted right from the start. This is where I think the first shots were fired, where it was the deliberate dumbing down of our education system to make sure that we were not paying attention to what was really going on. That's why we don't teach civics in school. That's why the average person has no idea about politics. That's why the average Canadian is not engaged in politics in any way, shape, or form until about 3 years ago. Then we started to notice. And so when we look at the system that we're in, we start to learn more and more and more, because we have to. We have to start paying attention to what has been done to us, because we are, I hate to say this, we are victims of our own complacency. And this has to change. And it changes because of groups like this that are happening all over Canada. It's not just OLN. Or OLA, sorry, that's the network. You know what I'm saying. Ontario Landowners Association. I know where I am. Okay, I promise. But, you know, yeah, Joe Biden. I'm only 50, okay? Oh, geez. But, you know, I'm really encouraged when I hear Maggie and other people talking about local action having a national impact. That's where this is going to have to be fought. This is where it starts. This is where we take it back. Now I'm going to offer this idea for you. We've heard, I read about 2 days ago, and I don't remember her name. She's a school board trustee here in Ontario. I think in the Durham region. I could be wrong about that.
Linda Stone?
Yes. Where is she? Durham. See? Take that, Biden. Okay. Okay, she's been sanctioned again by her school board, or, you know, as a trustee. But this is what I would offer. And I'm going to make this suggestion this isn't a new idea, I'm sure, but I'm going to make this for every level of local government, whether it is your school board as a trustee, a municipal council member, or even getting on the board for the credit union, because those positions come up all the time. Every level or every local electable position that there is, what I'm going to say is 10-1. Don't send, what's her name, Linda Stone? That's right. Okay, don't send 1. Send 10 for her spot and send 10 for the other spot. If there are, 8 positions, send 80 people to take those positions, because there's a good chance that, 1 in 8 is going to get elected to that position. This is subversion, and subversion isn't a negative idea. It just means that you're using the system to your advantage. Okay, you have to use it to your advantage. So if we look at, let's say, for example, in Ontario alone, I Googled this, there is 2,860 approximately electable municipal council positions in Ontario. Let's multiply that by a factor of 10. For every seat, we're going to get 10 of our people to run in that thing. It doesn't matter if you lose. You got a 1 in 10 chance of getting your people in there. Not establishment people, not, consultants. What we need is for every municipality to be filled with people like Liz, with that kind of fire, to go into those positions. 10-1. School board trustee, maybe there's 8 positions. Let's get 80 parents. Let's get people to go in there and completely treat it like you're trying to crowd out a really bad weed. I think that's the way to go. Now, that's the local level. This is the local level. And for a while I wasn't so convinced on the local thing. And the reason is this. Again, the lawyers, they're going to come at me for this. Did you know that in most provinces in Canada, a premier of a province has the right to dissolve the council and to fire a mayor? They can dissolve your council. You're a provincial corporation as a municipality. So Liz can correct me if I'm wrong. She's got a book and I got it. I haven't read it yet. Well, you can correct me when I'm wrong, but I spoke to Keith Wilson about this too, and he said, oh yeah, it's true, because he helped write that law in Alberta. Yeah.
That has not always been the case.
Right.
Up until approximately the 1960s, 1970s, municipalities were actually created by people getting together and approaching either their, like used to be the OMB, or they would petition their MPP to create, through letters patent, a town, a village, a hamlet, or a municipality. That's how it used to work, and it used to be the people of that community that actually did it. So no one individual would bear the brunt of something being wrong, and so that there were roads and schools and churches and all that that could be built with the community supplying that. There you go. That's
Okay.
how it works.
So, again, back before this ideological war had started happening in our communities, when we didn't notice, right? Unfortunately, we don't have enough unorganized townships in Ontario, but we all can't be Sean James, can we? If you don't know who Sean James is, it's a great YouTube channel, My Self-Reliance, Unorganized Township, really good in Ontario. But here's the thing, this approach, is it slow? Yes. Is it deliberate? Yes. Is it going to be a big move, a big chess move on our side? No, it's not going to be. And it is going to, we're going to have setbacks. We're going to lose some of these small battles. But over time, and it's going to take time, we are never going to do this kinetically. It's not going to work through force. And I know sometimes people are frustrated and they want this big move and they want to go and arrest Justin Trudeau and they want to go to the Peterborough Police Department and arrest police officers in the parking lot under a citizen's arrest. Anyway, I don't want to talk too much about the Queen of Canada, okay? I've said enough. But people want the big moves, I get that. But this didn't happen to us under a big move. This took decades to get us into checkmate like we feel. Maybe we're in check, but I think we can get out of it. I ran last year provincially. And the reason I ran provincially was because I wanted to be in a position where the party I was with the Ontario Party, could give the municipal governments the top cover that they needed. That's why I went at that level, because I wanted some of us to be at the provincial level, and I wanted a lot of you to be at the local level. And I wanted to be able to give support at that level and to have a premier's office or a provincial government that would reverse all of this crap. I jokingly said that I wanted Doug Ford's job. I'll just leave that one out there too, right? That Doug Ford, Queen Romana, whatever. At the end of the day, it is always going to come down to the local level, what we do. And if the premier decides, hey, I'm going to get rid of that councillor, I'm going to get rid of that mayor, that troublemaker in that area, well, they can't do it to everybody in Ontario. If all of the municipalities are of like mind and they all do the same thing and they come in and they take over, Doug Ford can't fire every premier or every mayor and council. Liz?
Doug Ford can't.
Right.
He has to have grounds, and the dismissal has to come from the lieutenant governor. And they have to have their approval. So, just so you know, if you're elected, because you've sworn the oath and you signed the declaration to the king, that is the constitutional right that you cannot be removed by the premier, and it has to be caused through the lieutenant governor.
Okay.
I have a declaration.
Right.
That's the artificial intelligence speaking there.
Yeah.
Can dictate people.
Yeah. Yeah, well, they can make your life kind of hell, like he's done many times in the past. You know, if you really want to know, I don't think everyone in this room has to be reminded of this, but you know, let's talk about the dirty tactics last year in the election itself. 43% of eligible voters in Ontario was the lowest voter turnout in Ontario history last year. The lowest. Two reasons why. Because Doug Ford waited to the very, very last minute before he had to call that election. 30 days. 30 days to elect a new government. Didn't give any time to get the word out, to advertise, to fundraise, to do anything. If the media didn't like you, you weren't getting anywhere. Okay, if the media only did hit pieces or just ignored you, you weren't going to get anywhere. But the reality was this. The media told everybody that Doug Ford is going to win in a landslide according to the polls. In a landslide. And then when the advance polls opened up, they said that the lineups were all the way around the building at least 4 to 5 hours. You know what that told everyone? If the guy's going to win anyway, and the lineup is 4 or 5 hours, why should I waste my time? I'm not going. And you know what? It worked. Ontario gave their domestic abuser 20 more seats than he had previous to that election. Why? Because the vast majority of Ontario was more afraid of those 7 Liberal MPPs in this province than they were about giving parties like the New Blue or the Ontario Party even a fair shot. Okay, and I mention this because, yes, I said these groups are meeting, but these groups aren't big enough. and there's not enough people that are awake yet. It's growing. I think people are starting to notice the medical necessity to start paying attention to different people now. But we're not there yet. Good news is there's an election in about 3.5, 4 years. You can wait. You can wait. But here's a thing for me. I know Maxime Bernier. Joanne and I saw him at a fundraiser last week. I voted PPC in the federal election, and so I'm transitioning a bit to the federal level. But I'm at the point where I am federally, I'm politically homeless at this point. And initially, I wanted to reward Maxime Bernier for all the hard work that he had put in for this country. I think he deserved it. He worked his butt off. He gave the people that voted for PPC what they deserved and what they wanted. And I wasn't going to reward the Conservatives for his effort just because, you know, they had a better chance of winning. But I got to say this. At this point, any candidate out there, any party that is not talking about reforms to the current system of government is going to do politics the same old way that they've been doing politics, playing by the same old rules, the same old talking points, the same old, then they haven't earned my vote. And I strongly believe that. And I know Pierre Poilievre is nothing shy of a major catastrophe within his own party, a meltdown, or where he's no longer the leader. The Conservatives government is probably going to form the next federal government. I would imagine Pierre Poilievre is probably going to be the next Prime Minister of Canada. But, or is it, yeah, he'll be the Prime Minister. So I don't, Prime Minister, yeah. So my feeling is this: if nobody is talking about reforms, then we're just going to be fooling ourselves. And I would like to be able to nudge Maxime Bernier in a certain direction, but I don't have that kind of influence with Maxime Bernier. He's not in my circle of control. He's definitely in my circle of interest, but I don't have any influence or control over Maxime Bernier. He does what he wants. But recently I did, and I've reached out to Maggie, Leslyn Lewis. I emailed her because recently I did put a Twitter poll. I wrote a document. It started out as the Declaration of Independence, and it is modeled after the American Declaration of Independence. It's modeled after that. But I realized we're not declaring independence from our own country. We're not leaving. This isn't about King Charles or any of these people. So I sort of branded it, and I put it in as a Twitter poll, and I put it on change.org, except that change.org was collecting donations, and people thought the money was coming to me to push this forward. So I stopped it after 1,600 signatures. It raised a lot of money, but it didn't go to me, so I stopped it. But on the Twitter poll, it got the maximum amount, almost 20,000 votes. And until the trolls started attacking it, we had a 98% yes rate. People wanted to see this thing go forward. And what I did is I wrote, I don't know if anyone saw it, now it's called the Declaration of Non-Confidence. And it goes to Maggie's, what she was doing in Ottawa. But I don't want to read all of it, but I want to hit sort of the main points to it. And I look at it in the first paragraph. So within this whole document, what I created was something, I didn't call it conclusion, I called it our resolution. And what it said is, and I want to read the first line of this, or the first paragraph. In light of the grave transgressions and ethical shortcomings exhibited by the current government, we, the sovereign citizens of Canada, formally issue a censure against the Prime Minister, his cabinet, and the entire Liberal government of Canada. So that is the resolution to this thing and what I wanted to see. I've requested, I don't know how far I'm going to get, because I need a federal MP to sponsor this petition. I want this to be read in the House of Commons. That's the goal. I want the 338. It's so bad that we're referring to the 338 as a noun, right? Like it's the 338. That's how bad things have become. They're not our representatives, they're a noun. So it goes on, And to this end, we articulate the following minimum imperatives as terms for restoring integrity, transparency, and competence in governance. Trigger for elections. Should the ruling minority government form a coalition, and you know where I'm going with this, NDP. Any NDP in here? I'm kidding. You can stay, I'm kidding. Should the ruling minority government form a coalition that effectively grants it the unchecked powers of a majority government, this act will compel the initiation of an election within 60 days. Such circumvention of the electorate's intent to elect a minority government must not be tolerated. So that's the tone of what this is. I'm asking for reforms. I want the Conservatives to change the way they're doing governance. That's what I think we should be demanding at the federal level. I don't think we'll get too far, Trudeau for treason. We can try. But I just don't think we're going to get too far. But I want to move the argument away from these big moves to saying the current system just doesn't work. It's garbage. We need to transform and reform the way the system is now. Some of the items, and I see my 5-minute warning, the big hook. Empowering the electorate in cases where the official opposition lacks the authority to initiate a vote of no confidence. The power to do so must rest unequivocally with the electorate through a national referendum. Ask us if we want to have a vote of non-confidence, or if we can have a referendum and say, no, we want an election. Accountability of members of parliament, that is recall legislation. I think that's important. We have to have recall legislation at our constituency offices. Yep. Preservation of individual mandate. Abolish the practice of whipping votes. Do you understand? We have a political system in this country where the Prime Minister tells his entire party what to do. The second most powerful man in federal government right now is Jagmeet Singh. 2 people tell their parties the way they're going to vote. And if they don't, they risk being kicked out of the party and sanctions. And they all follow along. Transparency in foreign aid and military spending. If you're going to give $5 million of our taxpayer tax money, I want a national referendum on that. $9.5 billion to Ukraine. Did anyone ask you if you want it? How many doctors and nurses is that? How many tuitions for university and college is that? How many hospital beds is that? How many long-term care facilities is that don't bankrupt the children? $9.5 billion, and nobody asked us. So I want that to be a referendum. Multi-provincial representation. This one I know is going to get me in trouble. What I'm saying is there should be no federal party that doesn't have members in at least a minimum of 3 other provinces. Bloc Québécois does not have a single member of parliament outside the province of Quebec. Why are they voting on national issues? Why did they uphold the Emergencies Act when they're not even, there's no members of parliament that are Bloc Québécois outside of Quebec? Licensing. I want licensing for members of parliament. They should be licensed because they should have a governing body that looks at their conduct, and their license should be revoked if they don't abide by this code of conduct and ethical standards. Yep. The oath of veracity, basically meaning they should swear an oath once they're elected, and it should be the same thing as or equivalent punishment of perjury. If you're asked a question in Parliament, answer the bloody thing. Don't be like Chrystia Freeland. I would like to see, there's a couple others, but parental rights and guardianship, Bill C-4 has to go. Bill C-4 has to be repealed. Do you know that every parent in this room, if you talk to your children about conversion therapy, If you have a conversation with your children with conversion therapy, you can go to jail in this country for 5 years. For having the conversation about it with your children. That should be repealed. And by the way, the entire 338 voted for it. No CBDC, no vaccine passports, and no social credit system. They should be outlawed. It should be put into legislation. There's never going to be conversation of this ever in this country. Last but not least, legislation shall be enacted to prohibit foreign non-governmental organizations from having any decision-making authority over Canada's national sovereignty. These are the kinds of things that I want to move the conversation at the federal level to. This is what we should be talking about in terms of reforms. I'm not saying we storm, the House of Commons, pull our own January 6th, even though apparently we did anyway. But at the end of the day, we don't control the guns, we don't control the force, we don't control the military or the police. The government does. They control the courts. And so I think we can do this if we play by their rules. But again, it's 1,000 times harder. It's going to take a long time. But I think it's better than doing nothing and looking for big moves that might get a lot of people killed. And I don't want to see that. I don't think it's necessary. Until the government puts us into checkmate and we do run out of food, then this is the kind of thing that I'm going to be advocating for. But it's harder. We're going to lose a lot of these legal battles, but I think it's a better way to do it. And just so you know, Czechoslovakia is one of the countries in Europe that actually separated without a war. There was no civil war in Czechoslovakia. They broke up peacefully, 2 governments. It can be done. It doesn't have to be violent. I won't advocate for violence for it. But I will say we can do this. We just have to be extremely patient. The last thing I do want to say for all of you who did purchase the book or support the book, thank you. It was a 1.5 years of my life just to draft that book. It was very difficult. At times, it was very emotional to go through and relive that event. I feel like I've done the convoy 3 times, one at the convoy, one at the commission, and then writing the book. I tried to be as honest and open as I possibly could about, my experience at the convoy. I wanted to show the good things, and I wanted to show all the warts too, because there was a couple, I can tell you. It wasn't ugly. What do they say about making sausage? 2 things you don't want to know. How do you make laws and sausage?
Oh my God, I'm doomed. I know both.
Yeah. Anyway, I do want to thank everybody. I do get a lot of support online. I know Chris and Tamara do. I am not legally allowed to talk to Tamara, and I have to use an intermediary, but I can talk to Chris Barber, and in fact, I'll see Chris next Saturday morning in Niagara. I know there'll be questions maybe later. I can wait. If anyone wants to ask what my thought is on the trial, we did go for the first day, and I'm sort of in contact with the lawyers involved, but I can't directly talk to Tamara, but I can talk to Chris. So with that, I do want to say thank you for inviting me, and I'm really happy to see this many people turn up to this. This is really encouraging. So thank you.
Show of hands of somebody who wants to ask a question. We'll start at the back here.
I don't know if I don't think I need a microphone, thank you.
Yes,
I have a question for both Maggie and Tom. So actually, a quick one for Tom. So if 338's a noun, what are the pronouns?
I'm not going to swear.
So for myself, this is new to me. I've been introduced to a few through videos. Maggie, Tom, following the Freedom Convoy. I followed Viva Fry to see the difference between what was on the ground and then what CTV, Global, CBC were saying at night. It's become obvious that we need to get back to basics. Our school system needs to teach civics again, I think, so our young generations grow up and know. But here's my question. So I know we get Liz's book. That's great. Tom, nobody's been able to answer this one for me. Canada, what is it? Is it a constitutional monarchy?
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Is that what we are? So, democracy, etc.
Can I do this?
Go ahead.
Okay. Everyone is misunderstanding the word democracy, and it has been bastardized since about, I would suggest, oh,
Right here, Liz.
I'm supposed to go to the mic.
We need you on the YouTube.
Oh. So the word democracy, a lot of people misunderstand what it truly means. And that is the biggest problem, and it has been that way, I would suggest, since 1968, when Emmett Hall came out with his report on education in Canada and in Ontario. That said, what democracy is supposed to be is we elect officials to protect our rights from government. We elect officials so that they understand that removing one person's individual, inviolable rights is to remove everyone's rights, including their own. And they don't understand that anymore because they have not been taught. So now they think that democracy is mob rule, when in fact, democracy is the complete opposite. That's where we need to re-educate everyone. The fact that democracy is to protect every individual's rights so that every person's rights are also protected. That's what democracy is. And democracy came into play with Magna Carta. That was the first blow to having an absolute monarchy, and that was the first creation of democracy. Does that explain it to folks? Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Just jump on a piece of that. For the record, I am not a lawyer. I'm not a lawyer.
Neither am I.
Construction, software, and business. That's my education, so I'm not a lawyer. But what I want to say is, if you look at, because I've spent a lot of time this year looking at the American model, and believe me, you know, the Americans are no better off than we are. So I'm not holding America up as the, you know, the shining star, of, you know, the gold standard, because we've seen, you know, last couple, we really know how bad it's become in America as well. So there's this belief that the forefathers of America, when they were creating, they broke off from a monarchy. They didn't want to have a king, but they were afraid of democracy, because democracy becomes the majority rules and subverts the rights of the individual. So they created a republic. So it's more important that you kind of look at it from a republic point of view, where the individual is not crowded out because the mob rules. And so it's an important distinction that we have amongst, you know, democracy versus. That's not me, is it?
It's your heartbeat.
My heartbeat.
Yes.
Anyway, I just wanted to, and the last thing I wanted to add, the Charter of Rights and Freedoms exists in this country to protect all of you from government. You can't launch a charter challenge against Tim Hortons for not filling your double-double. Okay, you've got to look at human rights there. But the vast majority of people don't understand, and I didn't know this either, so I'm not going to pretend like I know everything about law. But the Charter of Rights and the Constitution are meant to protect us from the government. That's why it was enacted. So I wanted to leave you with that.
But what about the notwithstanding clause that's been put into the charter?
Yeah, so I spoke to Brian Peckford about that. You know, we've got two things. You have section 1. He doesn't know who wrote section 1, by the way. 33, the notwithstanding clause. they do perform two different things, and if you read section 33 where the notwithstanding clause is, talks about limits, like you can suspend people's rights through legislation for a period of up to 5 years.
Yeah.
The section 1, we hear this term demonstrably justified. I can take away your rights if I can demonstrably justify taking away your rights. So you see very often in the courts where a judge will admit, yeah, the government violated your charter rights, but it's okay, because they could demonstrably justify why they did it to you. So those two things, section 1 and 33, are two different things. So you gotta be very careful, because I got into an argument with a lawyer about that, and obviously I lost.
So would you say that Mr. Petford would agree that there's a real problem with that first clause?
Well, you gotta be careful with him, because, you know, it's his legacy, and he's
Yeah,
very
it's his
passionate
baby,
about it.
yeah.
But I think he would also agree that, you know, there's some blind spots in it. But what I will say is the reason he's suing under section 6, which is mobility rights, is because during the time when they drafted the charter, they considered a pandemic. They even considered a pandemic, and they said absolutely, even a pandemic is not justification for stopping Canadians from their mobility rights, even a pandemic. So you gotta let that one sink in a little bit when you realize that the framers of our Charter of Rights and Freedoms even said, we considered a pandemic, it's not good enough. And yet they did it. They did it to all of us.
So I have to find out what a constitutional monarchy is, because that's an interesting phrase, but that's all it is. What is that, right? It's a reality, but I mean, I have to know what that means.
Well, I
is
can
all
answer
I'm
that,
saying.
but I don't think we have enough time today.
No.
So
Yeah.
get my book and happy reading.
Yeah.
Okay, a question that came up earlier, the raffle raised $1,160.25. I didn't know there was any 25-cent tickets back there. I'm not quite sure what happened.
Somebody must have left a tip.
Somebody left a tip. Okay, the next question, Don, you're the first hand up, I guess.
I just want to continue on the question about the notwithstanding clause, and I'll bring it back to Liz, I think. Does the notwithstanding clause apply to the actual Constitution Act of Canada, not just the Bill of Rights?
The notwithstanding clause does not affect anyone's rights under the Constitution other than those specific sections of the Charter. So if you go past, say, section, I think it's 15, the notwithstanding clause does not apply. If you go to the Constitution of 1867, the Charter and the notwithstanding clause cannot overrule any other section of the Constitution. Now, some of you folks got my book. In 1948, the Canadian Bar Association spoke about our constitutional rights. And then fast forward to 1948, when they made the statement that if government is allowed to write down those rights, they have the right to regulate and remove those rights. So this is why Deef wrote the Bill of Rights in 1960, based on the fact that you couldn't have a constitution that laid out those rights, because if you did, you were allowing the legislators to actually regulate and remove those rights. So our rights were already constitutionally protected under the preamble of the British North America Act. And in that British North America Act, and if you don't know what that is, that's the Constitution Act of 1867. So that is where all of our constitutional rights actually lay. And on top of that, with the Annapolis case, they brought forward Section 26 of the 1982 Constitution. And in there, it clearly lays out that Canadians cannot be denied the rights they previously had. So technically, you can go to the Charter And you can still claim all of those rights. It's just to get that brought forward into the courts. So we've had one foray with the Annapolis case, and we've won. And I've been saying this for years. Look to Section 26 of the 1982 Constitution, and then you can bring all of those rights that are in the DNA to your rescue. And I'm not a lawyer, and that's not legal advice, just like Tom. But I have taken on the lawyers, and I have proven property rights are constitutionally protected under the Constitution Act of 1867. And in doing that, we're moving forward. We're winning. And it takes time. It's taken us 60 years to get to this 1946-47. And 1947 is the most pinnacle time in Canadian history, because that's when they brought forward the letters patent for the Governor General, was 1947. They still stand, and our Governor General, with cause, can remove any minister, including the Prime Minister. It's one of the biggest, most important constitutional documents we have in this country. So, we have a constitution and your rights are protected. We just don't know it. So if you don't know your rights, you don't have any. Learn them.
Yes.
This is a question for Liz too. We're planning to go and do a deposition to our council in Aurelia, thanks to Maggie's template. And our clerk tells us that we need to get permission from the council to do that. Is that true?
No, you make an application.
Yes.
Want to know what? Okay, this is the problem. You're dealing with the clerk. You're dealing with the CAOs. Okay? How many counselors do you have?
9.
Okay, so you get their email addresses and you get their phone numbers. And you want to know what's going to change everything? Do y'all know how to send out flyers in this country? Mailouts? Do you know it's 18 cents a flyer? So that's an 8.5 by 11, front and back. You let everybody know that your council won't let you do a delegation without their permission. And then you'll see poop hitting the fan, because and make sure you put on it. You make sure you have their phone numbers. You call your counselors and you make sure this is unacceptable. You want to see council change their mind real quick? That's what does it.
And they've made our council meetings at 2 o'clock in the afternoon.
Okay, for that you got to go to Section 250 of the Municipal Act, and you need to. It happens. So then you can actually petition the municipality, and you're going to have 2/3, if you can get it, of residents. And it's a lot of work for the clerk, man. This is fun. So you can create a petition to actually force your municipal government to pass a bylaw under 250.
Okay,
It's like a little quasi referendum.
Liz,
Okay?
what was that section again?
250
Thank you.
of the municipal act.
Yes, Martin.
That's amazing.
Everybody, I am aware of the digital land registry being privatized back in 1991.
Can you stand up so people
Yeah.
can hear you?
And anyhow, how many people know who is the beneficial owner of Ontario and Manitoba's land registry?
Let's tear it out.
Wrong. Next.
Russia.
No. Owners.
Well, owners, yeah, they're the investors in it, but Terranet's
No,
the
no,
company.
no. Terranet has the contract. That contract went to Olmers when Olmers got bought Terranet.
Okay, well,
They bought Terranet for $1.7 billion in 2010. In 2011, they amended the contract. I have the contract. How do we get the contract into the Premier's hands so he sees Terranet is in violation of their contract? 711 pages.
Jack, is that a question
Jack?
for you?
That's your.
I can't answer that. I don't know.
Okay, it's
Liz,
called.
do you know this?
Yeah, you know what you do.
The contract, I got the contract. It's a secret contract. It's secret.
No, it's okay. So, no. Other people have to start answering questions too. Okay, so to get the contract to the premier,
Yeah,
okay, so you need to, and this is gonna kill a lot of trees, so if you're a tree hugger, cover your ears.
print the 711 pages.
Yeah, but you need to print it for the Minister of the Attorney General. You need to print it for the Solicitor General.
Solicitor General is supposed to call me as Sylvia Jones said he would.
I know, but you need to keep continuing.
Or I
Yeah,
continue.
so you send those contracts in, and you ask the question, is this, you never make a statement, is this contract in violation of the contract the province originally had with Teranet?
Right.
Okay, that's where you need to go with that. And then you also need to make sure that some of the local newspapers get that as well, because they really hate Doug Ford, and they're gonna get on his fuzzy
I'll
vibe.
tell you what the local newspaper in Brant County did when I laid down everything for them. They said, this is too big for us.
I know,
Okay, now that's the Post.
yeah.
That's the local newspaper in Brant County.
So get a hold of Benzie at the Toronto Star, because he'll do anything to embarrass the bejesus out of Doug Ford. Like, come on, think about
No,
this.
Kevin Donovan, I spoke to him.
Okay, well,
at
this is
Toronto
not
Star.
for now. These people have
Okay.
questions.
No, you've got to get this thing deprivatized, and how do we do that?
You have to petition to the Solicitor General and the Attorney General to have the registry put back, because actually, to be perfectly honest, the registry should never have been personalized
Never.
or privatized in the first place.
It was illegal.
It is illegal,
That's right.
because the Crown cannot remove the Crown domain without the registry.
Okay.
And this is why, from the registry, they have transferred everything over to the Land Titles Act, but the Land Titles Act was actually created in 1885, and it was created to make land transfers simpler for the average person.
Not land
That's why
titles.
there's Land Titles Act. So, and yes, it was in 1885, I got the document at home. But the long and the short is, the registry is there for a specific reason. And that is the only way that the Crown can remove the Crown domain, and it is the only way you can find out exactly what you do or do not own. So you need to do title searches all the way back to the original land patent to find out what you do or do not own. And that's where the registry comes into play, and all that is kind of talked to about in my book.
And it's impossible now because all land registry owners or offices have been closed as of October 2020.
Yep.
Martin has done extensive research on this for how many years now?
Since 2010, when we discovered my mother's property was stolen in 2008.
So anybody who wants to hear, we've had him as a speaker in our county chapter, we've had him down at the plowing match, it's very good. Get a hold of Martin if you have any kind of a meeting and you want to find out more about this.
I stick only to the
Next
facts.
question, we got one right here.
Yeah, I just had a question about the constitutional monarchy. Is the local municipal level defined as a constitutional monarchy in the charter or the Bill of Rights as well, or is that not a
No,
level of government?
municipalities are government that are made originally by the people. But they've amended the Municipal Act in 1968. And that's actually when the Royal Commission came out on land use and ownership in 1973. They were building up to it in 1968. We had a lot of things happen in 68.
But municipalities aren't constitutional monarchies though?
No, they're corporations.
They're corporations. So there is no local municipal level of government. What are we electing then as mayors and councilors?
Okay, this needs to be explained. Sorry, folks. Okay, so municipalities, yes, they are corporations. They always have been corporations, all the way back to 1841.
But they're public.
They are corporations, and they are, hold on, corporations, because it used to be municipalities had to follow the Corporations Act, and then it changed. And now they are not subject to the Corporations Act. When you elect your mayor, reeve, warden, whatever the title is, that person is the CAO. Okay, and your councilors are your board of directors. Wow. And then you have the CAO, you have the clerk, you can't exist without a clerk. So you have the CAO
you have a board of directors that you've elected. And they're supposed to keep the financials of that municipality in order, they're supposed to keep staff in order, and you can find all that in section 224. Okay? The whole thing is, they are merely a form of government. The province is a corporation, and it has a governance status. The federal government is also. So is King Charles. And this is so they cannot have one individual person being sued. That's why, and that's why under section 9, they have natural persons powers. So they can enter into agreements. So they can hire and fire. So they can do all of the things that you and I can do. That's what the way the municipal setup is for government. And if you go all the way back to even 1841, there were letters patent for those municipalities, but they were created by the people. Now, these municipalities, yes, it has been changed, but you still elect your board of directors and you still elect your CEO. And that's the way it works. But they have sworn an oath of allegiance and a declaration to the people when they actually swear an oath of allegiance to King Charles and sign on the dotted line on that declaration. Because there is no king without the people. And that's what that king is there for. The king is to protect the people from government. As I've said, the governor general can veto still, so can the lieutenant governors. And on top of that, the governor general is a constitutional monarchy, which is the people and their rights.
Excuse me, miss, when you're saying the CEO, you're meaning the head of council of the mayor.
Yeah, and that can be any title. It can be mayor, it can be reeve, it can be warden, it can be Humperdinck, as long as it's used respectfully.
Yeah, chief executive officer, not the chief administrative officer.
No, this is the CEO, chief executive officer, and then they can hire a CEO, but you can't have a municipality without a clerk.
The mayor hires the CEO?
No, council does.
The council does?
Yes. Anyways, I hope that, okay.
Very good if people can read the municipal act. It's a long, drawn-out affair, but the fourth time you read it, it starts to make sense. Yes.
So take it from the doorstep,
Yeah.
These strong mirror powers that Doug Ford has handed out to certain mid-sized cities and large cities, it sort of does away with voting for a councillor, doesn't it?
No, it doesn't. It takes 2/3.
Yeah, but
Two-thirds, it always was 2/3. Look at the way councils vote. So you have 7 councillors, right? So if 4 vote against it, 3 vote for it, that's 2/3. It's still 2/3. Giving these big mayor powers really doesn't mean that much at all. It's just a threat. That's all it is.
I caught Tim here just before, and then I will go to you.
This question's for Tom and Maggie.
Yay.
What does the word progressive mean to you?
Progressive.
You answer the question, you take.
Did you want to repeat that question?
Progressive.
I don't really have an answer for that.
Can you define a woman?
I didn't ask for a definition, I asked what does that
This
word
one?
mean to you?
This one? Okay. I'm not really a politically minded person. I don't really follow these terms and give too much thought to them, to be honest.
So you're making the assumption that I'm asking for a political definition or a political...
What does progressive
I said,
mean?
what does the word mean to you?
Yeah, I honestly don't have a great answer for that. I haven't put a lot of thought into it. My thinking is more at grassroots level, and looking at what the community needs and all of these things. I think it comes down to what I've gone through in my personal life. I really don't have time to focus on nonsense. So I'm not saying it's nonsense, it's part of our culture right now, but I don't spend a lot of time looking at things that I know aren't worth my time, and I just focus on being the person I need to be and raising my kids the way I'd like to raise them, and working in my community the way I want to work in my community. So, I think that that what we're up against, it continuously throws things at us, drag queen story hours, progressivism, feminism, whatever it is, and it's going to keep doing that. And at a certain point, my brain kind of just shuts down, and I say, I'm not dealing with that anymore. I'm focusing on things that are within my control and things that I care about. So that's my answer. Sorry, not a big. I haven't read up on that word too much, so.
Yeah.
Go for it. Yeah. Go for it.
Tim, so to me, the word progressive means liberal. So when I was a member of the Progressive Conservative Party of Ontario, I didn't fit in very well. And before I got there, they knew I was coming and they know where I came from, which is you folks. So I didn't fit in very well. And I grew to understand that fairly quickly, because they wanted me to understand that fairly quickly. So, and what made it really clear, one of the first fundraisers I went for the party, which was downtown Toronto somewhere, and they raised a huge amount of money, and Bill Davis was there.
Oh, good old Bill.
I'd never met Bill Davis, I knew who he was, but he knew who I was. And it was important that he come over and tell me as he walked by, without introducing himself, that just remember, Ontarians love progressives. And that spelled it out pretty loud and clear to me. And in my time there at Queen's Park, I couldn't see a hell of a lot of difference between the PC party, the Liberal Party, and the NDP. Except I got along a lot better with the NDP than I did the other two parties. Anyway, thank you.
Tom?
I have a number of questions, so I'm going to try to ask. Hopefully you guys understand the question. Municipal political parties. For Maggie or anyone else who wants to comment. I know there's probably the initial reaction will be we don't need political parties at the municipal level, let's just select people. But my experience observation has been that when people run for office municipally, we really have no idea what they stand for. And even if they get in, they don't have the power to do what they're interested in, so then they just go with the flow. BC allows political parties. In Ontario, we're not allowed to have political parties. I believe that under section, anyways, we have a right to choose our representation of who we want, and so we have a constitutional right, if we want a political party to represent us, that comes out with a platform and says, this is what we stand for, so that if we elect you, we know exactly what we're getting. Right now, we don't know. It's just a crapshoot with those running. I'll sit down, I have more to say, but I'll let you, I'll let you comment, because it's a big, huge democratic issue. And the last thing I'll say on this is, people usually say, oh, well, if we take away this power, we're going to lose democracy. No. The UK, they have this power. They have 99% loyalty to the whip. In the US, where the courts have said they don't have this power, they have 85% loyalty. So it doesn't destroy party loyalty. It just empowers the local MPs like Jack McLaren to say, I'm going to vote how I want, and you can't kick me out of caucus. That's
so, it is a great question. It is the starting point as to why in the last provincial election, why I chose the Ontario Party. Because I had spoken to both parties, the New Blue and the Ontario Party, and I said, if I join your party, is your party going to whip votes? The Ontario Party said no. I couldn't get a straight answer out of the New Blue, and I'm not here to bash the New Blue, okay? But from my perspective, with the Ontario Party, and I'm not shilling for the Ontario Party too, but I want you to understand my frame of mind here. The Ontario Party's belief is that your vote is free. You vote for your conscience, you vote for your constituents, what they want, okay? So in the American system, the party in the American system has to court your vote. Yes, they expect some loyalty to the party. You're a Democrat or a Republican. But your votes in America are still free. You can have Republicans voting with Democrats and Democrats voting with Republicans on issues. And there's not supposed to be retribution. Okay, but this is the difference between what's law and what's politics, right? So I would imagine in America, there's, I'm sure, a lot of retribution if you don't go with Joe Biden on a certain vote or, Trump on a certain vote. But in Canada, you're giving out your vote. You're told what your vote is. And the people of Canada are under the impression that this person that I elected, that I saw on the ballot, most people when they go and they show up to the election, they look at the ballot and go, where's Justin Trudeau? They don't realize that you're voting for your member. Like Trudeau's name is not going to be on the ballot unless you're in the riding of Papineau. And then 110,000 Canadians screw the rest of Canada. But anyway. So at the end of the day, I would like to see members of parliament that are elected by the electorate, by the people, be protected from being kicked out of their party if the party leader fails to convince that member that it is in the best interest of the riding to vote with the party member. So for example, if Doug Ford at the provincial level decided that there was a great thing that was going to happen in Windsor, Ontario, let's go to Justin Trudeau. It's a great idea that we put $14 billion into a battery plant in Windsor, Ontario. Okay, well, maybe somebody else in another part of the province or the country doesn't like that, but they belong to the Liberal Party. Doesn't matter. You do what you're told or you're gone. Now, you're gone from the party, but you're an independent now. So what's his name who just stepped down, the speaker? He's still in politics, he's still an MP, but he's an independent. His chances of getting elected in the next election are next to impossible. None of the parties will take him. Nobody's going to help him, and the media is going to smear him for the rest of his life. So at the end of the day, we expect that when we put forward somebody's name, they're going to take our riding association's concerns to the government of the riding. It's not how it really works, though. So this is what I'm saying is, I want those members of parliament, if they have a liberal ideology or a conservative ideology, or if they're progressives, that they're protected to keep the membership of that party, and there's not there's not this retribution against the person. And I think there's no legislation that I'm aware of that protects you and lets you stay in one party or another. If the party decides you're gone because you didn't vote with what the leader wanted, you're gone.
But they've changed the election result.
It does, but it's math. Now we get into math, right? We get into numbers and calculus and stuff like that.
Don't we do this?
But anyway, too long?
Nope,
Oh, good. All right. Sorry.
We actually said we would shut down at 3. Who wants to stay a little longer? I think there's a lot of people with a lot of questions. If the panel up here wants, we will keep going for a little bit.
Can I answer his question about municipal?
You can, very much
Okay. So it kind of ties in a little bit together, my answer to your question, with your two questions together. I ran in the federal election in 2011, and after that, I watched the federal elections, and people like myself and Tom or anyone who's running, you went provincial, but getting about 2 to 5% of the vote. So the people with the ideas that resonated with me, they're getting a very low vote. And that kind of told me that I wasn't going to put my time and effort into running again, that at least for now, that my effort, if I was going to do anything, should go into the groundwork that needs to be done. Some sort of groundwork is missing. We're missing a step here, and that's why the focus on our local area and our communities appeals to me. And so, going to your question about parties versus independent candidates at the local level, should we have parties there? What I like about the local level is it is the one that doesn't have parties, but I can see why you would think that we should know what they're standing for, and we don't, right? But again, that goes back to the groundwork that I seriously think needs to be a focus. The people that are elected at the local level, they are the ones directly representing the people of that geographical area or that ward, whatever it was. And previously, for instance, in Kawartha Lakes, which was once Victoria County, I read an article about that when we were doing some work over there to understand the history. And it used to be, so many different, were they wards back then? Townships?
Yep.
Townships. And, it was really beautiful that some of the people, they weren't paid at all. They just represented their community, and they represented it well, and they didn't want a paycheck, and the people of that area knew who they were, they knew what they stood for, and they were the ones to represent their area, and we need to get back to that. And I think the only way to get back to that is to start doing local councils on local issues, having regular meetings on the local issues, knowing what's going on inside those municipal corporation buildings, and addressing that, at least to the point of public awareness. The people need to know what's going on before we can get those numbers up, before we can get that support base up, and before we can rebuild our village, in a sense, so we can have the numbers to do what needs to be done. Because we're never going to get anyone elected at any level of government without numbers and without public awareness. And we won't make any system reforms if we don't do any of this. So it's kind of a step-by-step process, but that's what we're seeing at our town councils now. Okay, this is fun. Let's go to the town council. Let's do a delegation. Let's bring forward some truth. Let's get it on public record. Let's bring 60 to 100 people. Let's have a standing ovation. Let's meet with our councilors after and see which ones are even on side, which ones even want to represent the people, or are they just getting their paycheck and working on the service corporation? Because that's not what we thought we elected them to do. Oh, wait a second, there's people having town halls over here. People are starting to go. There's 60, there's 100, there's 1,000 showing up on a regular basis. And now this is our community. Now we have a community. Now we have a place where we can air our issues. We can discuss what the local issues are. And we actually have a force to be reckoned with. Then it's not 100 people showing up at our town halls. It's 1,000 people outside our town halls in waiting, and we can do that. We have the numbers. There's enough like-minded people all around us, but they don't have a place. They don't have a voice. So it's up to us, the people in this room here. You guys are leaders, and you know it. You guys are leaders. You wouldn't be here if it wasn't for it. You have the ability to work with others, to book a room, to call an event, to start some public awareness campaigns and get people in and target those local issues that right here in Duro-Dummer, it's the ATVs, okay? I think I might have mentioned it, but they switched it around so that they could get delegations up there. You know what they care about? Whether or not they can drive their ATVs around here or not, or whether they're going to be taken off the roads because of damn climate change, okay? So it's awesome, and but we need to get the numbers up, and until that happens, that's where my energy and focus is going to be. And along with that is a certain level. Once we come together at that level and we organize, we got to start talking about what the needs of our communities are, because there's a lot of people who are suffering, And what we're, the people who are able to get people elected right now, they have service clubs. They have, you go into every town, there's a board, and it has all the different clubs. And they're the ones doing community service in your area. And they're not all bad people, but they have an agenda, and it's to get their people elected, and they do. And so they're always doing community service projects. They do it non-politically, and they get the media to show up and promote what they're doing, and whoever is part of that. And within a couple of years, those people are the ones running in the election, and they're known in their community. So the community knows who they are, they know that they've participated in things that have benefited the community, and we need to do that too, not just because we want to get elected, but because the government has dropped the ball so bad that our community needs help, and we need to get out there. And if we want to sit on the throne, we have to be willing to wash the feet first. So these are principles that we can take for community growth, and that's my answer to that. So I think that the people getting elected, they should be known, and we should know what they stand for, but the answer isn't to put them into a party. It's to be involved in your community and to know the people of your community. Thank you.
Okay, I just want to add on to Maggie.
Yeah.
Okay. So everybody talks about the municipal level, and yes, we need to take on the municipal level, and we need numbers. Okay, so we need to take on our municipalities, but we all have to understand one thing about our greedy elected officials. And it's not the councils that I'm talking about, greedy elected officials. I'm talking about the political parties, the Liberals, the PCs, and the NDP. There are only one voter. There is only one voter. We vote municipally for certain things. We start raising stink with numbers, and that reflects provincially and federally. They have to start listening. That's why numbers matter. And as you said, get to know your locals. And whoever is getting, you don't understand, these guys are drilling right down to the data of how many votes a councillor gets. Because they're always spying to see who's going to be the next MPP for that area. Look at how many mayors that just got elected as MPPs. They dial down on how many votes. You want to get your representatives that you're electing municipally into provincial to make changes, into federal to make changes. You are one voter, and they know they need your vote at all levels. But the municipal guys, they're counting their votes. So if you have a councillor that's getting the majority of the votes, he's going to have more sway with the boys in Queen's Park and the House of Commons. So remember that. Know your councillors, get them elected, and you can make change at all levels.
Yeah.
That's what I'm trying to say. Thank you, Nate.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Yes, sorry.
Yeah, just first of all to thank you all so much. You're all really heroes and leaders. I feel like I'm in Philadelphia, you know, for the Continental Congress. Hopefully it doesn't get to violence, you know. But seriously, the Declaration of Independence. I really do. I really think, you know, and how many people were, you know, what percentage of the people in the United States, you know, we think they were huge, but they weren't. You know, I don't know what it is. So I just thank you so much. It's so exciting. But one of the confusions I have, everything you said, I'm totally on board with, everything. And I've learned it myself through getting involved issue by issue in my little Madawaska Valley municipality. And it's so great, all of a sudden you realize, oh no, everybody's doing the same thing. So it's just the way to go. Start small and gather up the fragments lest they be lost is one of, I belong to a religious community, and that was our main thing. Gather up the fragments lest they be lost. You know, we need the whole picture. So anyway, my question, I was kind of a little bit discouraged, and I don't understand all that well. I'm learning as I go. And Maggie, I thought you said something about the UN kind of co-opted through ICLEI or whatever, the municipalities, and they changed the nature of the corporation, And it's no longer the same. I can't remember what year you said that happened. And that now it isn't the same, that the mayor, the CEO, and the CAO, the corporation doesn't really represent the people anymore. And when you spoke, Liz, I thought you were saying, no, that's silly, the mayor doesn't have any more power, that's just, you know, an illusion to scare you. So I got kind of discouraged thinking, and I even gave a little talk on reform, and I said one thing, I heard there was a restructuring, and the actual reality, it looks like everything, it all looks the same on the surface, but it's been restructured, and they don't really represent us, the corporation, I don't know who it represents itself. So that's something that I think for me is really important, because I heard different things. There's no change, you know, go with it, and then I heard, no, we've got to roll that back. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, this is the thing. So our elected officials don't know what role they're supposed to be playing. And I explained that. They go to the candidates' meetings, they're told, listen to staff. When they get elected, they go for days of orientation, and they're told, staff are experts, listen to staff. So they have no clue what they are supposed to be doing. And it's highly complicated. The Municipal Act is 482 pages. And then there's all the regulations behind it. Like, there are 382,000 regulations in this province. And actually doing reports for lawyers and elected officials, I think I've read the majority of them. Some of them are only a paragraph, but other ones are huge. The building code regulation is 1,800 pages plus.
That's today. It changes daily.
But the big thing is, that's the problem. Everything is there. It's just, they need to read it. They need to understand their obligations. When I walk in and I talk to a bunch of council members, and I go, so have you read section 10, subsection 2, paragraph 4? And they go, and I go, section 10 is lower tier municipality authority. Subsection 2 is bylaws. Paragraph 4 clearly states, oh, you have the authority under subsection 2 to pass a bylaw in regards to public assets you have acquired to exercise your authority under the Municipal Act or any other act. And they sit there absolutely gobsmacked. That is the key component. Everything is in those acts, and yet they're told not to read it. Now, there are a lot of people talking about the United Nations, and we all know it. I've read 21, I've read 2030, I've seen it all, I've seen ICLES, I've seen everything. But when you're dealing with municipal councillors, and I've seen it because I've been doing this for 15 years, when you are speaking to municipal councillors, the majority of them, if you bring up the United Nations 2030, 15-minute cities, any of that stuff, first thing they're going to do is their eyes are going to glaze over, and they're going to look at you like you got a tin hat. And I'm not being rude to anyone, because these are just average, everyday people. And they may not have the IQ that a lot of people in this room have. And I'm trying to be nice. but this is the whole thing. If you go in there and you tell them, Mayor, what the hell's a planting strip? You've got it in the zoning bylaw. What the hell is it? Well, then he's going to go, well, I don't know. And so then you get someone else to bring up the fact, well, gee, Mayor, a planting strip is a boulevard, and it doesn't belong in the zoning bylaw. This is the thing. You need to talk to them in language they understand, because you're going to turn them against you. They're going to think you're trying to start a fight. And on the other hand, you won't accomplish your end goal, and that is to get things fixed.
Yeah.
So you need to talk to them in words they understand. And that has to be right at the base level. And Jack knows that, because I used to hurt poor Jack's brain sometimes. When he was an MPP. But you were glad I was there, weren't you?
Oh, yes, Liz.
Yeah, there's still some residual damage.
So there has been no change.
So as far as I understand, so in '92 we signed the deal with the United Nations, and it was a non-binding agreement. But the United Nations worked through the federal, the Federal Municipal Confederation of Canadian Municipalities, whatever that one is. FCA. The FCA, thank you. And FCM, yeah. And they sent the municipal primer, which is a 40-page document, to the municipalities of Canada. And then in that was basically how they wanted it to be implemented, the different things that they wanted to see changed, and the direction they wanted it to go in. So if you look at that, when I look at that, and when I look at my local strategic plan or planning documents, they line up fairly well. So you can see that they're taking the municipal primer from '94, and they don't have to, but that is what they are putting forward with our strategic plans. So, and again, it is coming from the city staff and from ICLEI and from these consulting groups. They're the ones who are doing it up, and then they're putting it before the mayor and council, and the mayor and council are saying, okay, thanks for doing your job, thanks for doing this work, and that is our main planning documents, our official plans and stuff. So it's a pretty big deal. And I got an update from Duro Dummer on the official plan here. And she, one of the ladies, happened to be sitting in the building and listening in on the meeting. And that when they come up with doing because we put a stop for now to it. We want more public consultation. Oh, no, sorry. It was for their strategic plan coming up in Duro Dummer. And one of the councillors asked, well, what are we going to do for public consultation? And they said, well, we don't really want to do public consultation. We like to do that after we've done it. So this is why we have to get involved at that level, because who is doing it? A consultant and city staff is doing it. So, and then of course, Municipal Act of 2001, I would love to pick your brain on what happens, considering that you've studied the Municipal Act all the way back. So what did change in that, and if there was a change related to the United Nations? Because to me it looks now, and to many, that it looks now that...
Okay, so what you need to be looking at is not the elected officials, okay? They are just average, everyday people. You need to be looking at staff. You need to be looking at the education of staff.
Yeah.
You need to understand that we have laws in this country. Like I brought up the Interpretations Act, Section 16 at the federal level.
Yeah.
So if you have, and bylaws are just regulations, okay? So if you have a municipal council whose planner has this brain fart to bring forward all of these copy and pasted definitions, like I said, the planting strip, right? Well, he has to have that from under a piece of legislation of provincial or federal stature, or he has to have that from law. And if he doesn't have that from law, it doesn't exist in law. He cannot just think these things up. And that's the problem. No one is calling out staff. We aren't doing the work. I did a 511-page document, and it took me a month just going through these definitions of this planner. And we have to get on them about their procedures. In one municipality, they aren't even doing a new official plan. They're going directly to passing a zoning bylaw, which is illegal.
Yeah.
But this is the problem. We don't know our rights. We don't know what's going on in our municipalities. We got to get the boots on the ground. We got to get in the door and find out what's going on. And that's where you need to find yourself some more nerves. I'm 62, people. I'm getting old and tired. So, but the big, yeah, poor baby, right? But the big thing is, like, okay, shipping containers. Everybody's freaking out. You're gonna have your shipping containers removed. They're gonna be banned in every municipality because they're not pretty. And planners don't like them. Well, a shipping container is a shipping container under the Federal Shipping Container Convention Act. And it meets specific criteria. And until you decide to start putting windows in it or using it to build a house, it is not a structure. It is a shipping container. And at any given time, if it meets the criteria, you can move her out. So your planner and your building inspector have absolutely nothing to say about that. But y'all don't know that, do you? It's the same with the ATVs going up and down the road. People are freaking out because, oh my God, they're going to take them away because of climate change. Who's making that decision? Is it the council?
CAO.
CAO.
That's the problem, because of the delegation of authority. You got to get on your council members. There is authority they can't delegate in the Municipal Act. And you guys are to become the bosses. Grow a set and get on them and get on the phone.
So I love what you said about the delegation of authority, because in Duro, and about the way that we speak to them so that they understand. Because, sorry. Because what worked in Duro Dummer was pointing out to them that they need to step into their true authority. And like, we elected them, they are the government, the city staff is not the government. And then also this is key information that you're bringing forward about the delegation of authority, and for them to understand that. So we're gonna have to bring that into our delegations and
It's crucial
communications.
because all of these delegation of authority bylaws right now are illegal. Because they have been barred and they have been banned from delegating a multitude of different authorities that they have. And they don't know that, and that's why that legal opinion from Oshawa is so important.
Tom?
Yes.
I think Liz's last line was a good place to end.
Yes.
Grow a set.
Yes. Thank you.